Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Good to see a nice crowd for this evening's meeting. I'll go ahead and call tonight's meeting of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners to order. This is May 19th, 2025. It is 5:02 p.m. If I could have everybody stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you, everybody, for being here with us this evening. Before we move on, we'll go ahead and take our moment of silence. This is at this time of the agenda. We take a brief moment of silence for individual prayer, reflection, or meditation. We take this time to honor and remember our first responders and the men and women in our military who keep us safe and protect our freedoms at home and abroad. All right, thank you. Again, appreciate everybody. We've got a few additions and deletions to go over. As you notice, for the record, we have 2 members missing. So Ms. Pennington and Ms. Richardson, we wish them the best. They're excused for illness, and we hope that they recover quickly and are back with us soon. As such, a few items have been moved around, and I want to go over them briefly. Added to the agenda was item 8F, the partial replat of the South Towers at Hammock Dunes. This item was finalized after publishing. Plenty of time, still met requirements for posting. We deleted item 7E, the ILA for 911 call transfers and routing. That item was pulled by staff. We modified item 4C, parentheses 2, the ESL update. We added a slide to the presentation. Item 7N, a resolution and multi-year contract for transportation disadvantage. We added attachment 3. Postponed from tonight's meeting is item 8A, the IDA applicant selections. This was due to, we canceled today's workshop, and as such, we've rescheduled it to May 28th. And due to that change, we postponed the applicant selection from tonight to the June 2nd, 9 a.m. regular meeting. Also, item 9B, request for appeal, project 2025040005. That item was pulled at the request of the applicant, and to preserve the public notice, we've moved that item to the 6/2 regular meeting at 9:30 a.m. or soon after. All changes were posted to the website prior to tonight's meeting. Anybody have any other additions or deletions, changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to chair announcements. Monday, May 26th, the county offices will be closed in observance of Memorial Day. Also, the county is soliciting applications for the Value Adjustment Board as a citizen appointee. This person must own a homestead property within the county. For further requirements, see Florida Statutes 195.015 or contact the Value Adjustment Board clerk at 386-313-4400 or email is vab@flaglerclerk.com. Upcoming commission meetings, we have a regular meeting on Monday, June 2nd at 9 a.m. and a workshop also on Monday, June 2nd at 1 p.m. and the rescheduled workshop. Have we, Ms. Petito, this next week, correct, for Wednesday, we're going to rehear a workshop on the 28th?
Correct, 28th at 1 p.m.
At 1 p.m. So some of the items, or I guess the items that were canceled from today's workshop will be held on the 28th at 1 p.m. All right, we're going to move on to proclamations. We have a few proclamations this evening. The first one is for Historic Preservation Month. Historic Preservation Month is May 2025. This is requested by Ed Sarkowitz, the Flagler County Historical Society President, and Mr. Hanson. Commissioner Hanson will read that.
Thank you. A proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners recognizing May 2025 as Historic Preservation Month in Flagler County. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, walks of life, and ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of heritage that has shaped us as people and a community. And whereas established in 1973 by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, events are planned to promote historic places for the purpose of instilling national and community pride, promoting heritage tourism, and showing the social and economic benefits of historic preservation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners that they hereby proclaim May 2025 as Historic Preservation Month in Flagler County, and urge the citizens to recognize the importance of historic preservation in Flagler County. adopted this 19th day of May, 2025, attested to by Tom Bexley, Clerk of the Court, and Flagler County Board of County Commissioners, signed by our chairman, Andy Dance. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve May 2025 as Historic Preservation Month.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Carney. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, congratulations and welcome, Ed. How badly did I get your last name?
Not too bad.
Okay.
My name's Ed Sharkovich with the Flagler County Historical Society. I'm going to be brief because I want to give my colleague here, James Fisk, enough time to talk. And thank you so much for issuing this proclamation. Flagler County history is significant, it's relevant, and our goal at the Flagler County Historical Society is to take all of our stuff, our artifacts, our records, our genealogies, historic properties, historic homes, and turn them into learning experiences for children. It's been said that history is much more than just names and dates and boring things to memorize. Historic knowledge, historic recognition of what our ancestors did to survive under varying conditions helps to sharpen our focus on our present and on our future. So I really appreciate each of you and staff for putting this together. And without further ado, here's James Fisk. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Our very own.
Good afternoon. My name is James Fisk, and I'm a board member with the Flagler County Historical Society, also a board member with the Flagler Beach Historical Museum. We're very proud of the history that we have here in Flagler County. It goes all the way back to prehistoric times, and then we've got the early Native Americans that were here. We've gone through the Spanish period, we've gone through the English period, the Civil War, the Seminole War, Second Seminole War, that parts of it took place here in what would become Flagler County, and then of course the Civil War. And we've had a lot of our residents that were early Flagler County that were involved with World War I and World War II, and of course Vietnam and on. So we've got a lot of history here in Flagler County, and we're very proud of our history. Thank you all very much for this proclamation.
Thank you. We appreciate all the work that you put in for making sure that we stay on our toes and protect what's valuable to Flagler. So appreciate that, keeping us straight.
We keep trying.
Come on, take a picture, and there's your proclamation.
Thank you. Nice seeing you. Always good to see you. Thank you. Have a great one. Thank you.
They deserve that round of applause. They do a lot of work. They're constantly at it, updating the archives and posting news online. So we appreciate all the work that the Historical Society does for us. All right, second on the proclamation is the Flagler Cares 10-year anniversary. This is requested by Savannah Prince, Flagler Cares Prevention Coordinator. And if y'all could come up to the podium for us, we'll go ahead and read your proclamation. Commissioner Carney has that for us.
A proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners recognizes Flagler Cares 10-year anniversary in Flagler County. Whereas Flagler Cares has over the past 10 years demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to meeting the health and social needs of residents across all of Flagler County. And whereas by addressing behavioral health, social services, substance use prevention, and outpatient counseling, Flagler Cares has created an expansive and vital safety net for individuals and families in every part of the county. And whereas the merger with One Voice for Volusia has further strengthened regional coordination, expanding services, and collaboration informed by the community voice and data. And whereas Flagler Cares has implemented the Flagler County Village, a centralized location where multiple service agencies collaborate under one roof, guided by a no wrong door approach, offering a community room for events and partnership meetings and eliminating barriers for both those seeking help and those providing it. And whereas Flagler Cares is committed to treating every individual with dignity and compassion, meeting people where they are and serving as a bridge to the resources and providers that can best support their needs. And whereas the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners commends Flagler Cares for a decade of dedicated service, celebrates its profound impact on the residents of Flagler County, and extends best wishes for continued success in the years ahead. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners that they celebrate Flagler Cares' 10-year anniversary and encourage all citizens to support Flagler Cares as they work to build a stronger, healthier community. Adopted this 19th day of May 2025, attested Tom Bexley, Clerk of Court, and Flagler County Board of Commissioner Chairman Andrew Dance.
Good evening.
I make a motion that we accept this, present this proclamation of Flagler County Commission to recognizing Flagler Cares' 10-year anniversary in Flagler County.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Carney, seconded by Commissioner Hanson. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, congratulations. Welcome. Hi, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Carrie Baird. I'm the CEO of Flagler Cares, and I have two team members with me, Cheryl Tristram and Rachel Giroux. So thank you so much for joining with us in our celebration of 10 years of service to Flagler County. You may know or may not know that this was the brainchild of a former commissioner and a former health department director, working with the hospital leader who thought that there was really a better way to serve Flagler County, to have a Flagler-focused organization. So we're very proud to fill that role in Flagler County and hope to continue our partnership into the coming years. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And Cheryl, good to see you again. Anybody else comments for the? It says.
I just got reintroduced to all of this when I became a commissioner, and I love the concept of going to that one space and having everything there, going up to the, is it the third floor?
Yes.
And then you get directions on to what services that you need. It's a very unique, very efficient way to provide services, and whoever that brainchild was, thank you for bringing it all to Flagler County. So.
And thank you again. This is one night we get to say thanks to everybody that's coming up, right, for proclamations. Historical Society first and Flagler Care second. 10 years went by fast, but we thank you for everything that you're doing for the community, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Come on up, we'll get your proclamation.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, that does it for our proclamations for this evening. We're going to move on to presentations. The first is our Emergency Management Department and Hurricane Season Update. With that, Mr. Jonathan Lord, our esteemed Emergency Management Director.
We really look forward to this every year. I want to tell you.
He's highly doc-
Happy May.
Yeah, happy May. Here it comes.
All right, so I'll start off first with a little update about our department, what we've been up to since I last chatted with you all this time last year. Obviously, last year we talked about the fact that we got accredited, one of only 6 counties currently accredited in the state of Florida. So we still have some processes related to maintaining that we've been going through and are passing with flying colors. I find that very important to me. It's not just sticker, and it's not just something cool to have. It's an outside entity validating that we're doing the right thing for our community versus Jonathan just telling you that we are. It's somebody else at least validating that the EM team is doing something right for our community. Back in last July, since that was after I last spoke to you all about this, you all did adopt our comprehensive emergency management plan. That is something that we have to do every 4 to 5 years by the state. It has to be state approved, and after state approves it, you all do adopt it. So that's a very important step that we have to have. It's in statute that we must do that. So that was done just under a year ago. I know I've talked a few times about something I mentioned before about FROC, which is Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation. It's a way where local governments, city and county governments, can voluntarily participate in a program with the state. If you choose to participate in this program with the state and you do certain things, you get a score. With that score, the higher the score you get, the faster the state will reimburse you. When the federal government reimburses the state, they reimburse us quicker. So I'm very proud that this year, Cat A, which is debris, we have a 60 out of 60 score. And for Category B, we have a 59 out of 60 score. So we're in that top 3 to 5 local governments in the state of Florida for being able to be reimbursed quickly from the state government. So that is super important to us because I know we need to get the money back and replenish our reserves. So it's a whole lot of administrative work to do it and training work involving my team as well as our finance team. But we're chugging our way through that, and I'm very proud that we're able to get that score. On our education and outreach side, again, if we don't do anything other than make sure we better prepare our community, then at least we're doing, that's super important that we do that. So we actually, when the county launched this new website, we were very aggressive to making sure the emergency management page was user-friendly and able to educate our public, plus able to post our upcoming classes on there that we offer every month. So we're very excited the county was able to transition to that new web page. We got a lot of positive comments back from people who used to complain about how hard it was to find our information to how much easier it is now to find our information. Social media, we have a very aggressive social media campaign because a lot of folks, definitely under a certain age, get their information not from the web, not from newspapers, not from going to libraries, but through social media. So we have a very aggressive social media outreach program. We're very happy that we have 28,000 followers across those channels. We'd like to have way more than that, but we're very happy with that number. Last fiscal year, we were able to hit 37 events with a reach of over 15,000 people to get in front of them, whether it was from being in a couple little parades to sitting down with small neighborhood groups and everything in between, that we were able to help get the message out to our community. And then training and exercise, obviously emergency management is only a small team of 6. When the EOC activates for any kind of emergency, we rely on hundreds of others, all of your county departments, all of the municipal departments, a whole bunch of nonprofit agencies and state agencies. So we need to make sure that we're actively training those agencies and exercising with those agencies to make sure they're prepared for whatever comes our way. So those are the numbers we hit over the last fiscal year. And then some other little side things that you all hear from me sometimes about. For the non-mosquito district treatments, they all run through emergency management. We coordinate, and then we contract with the district to provide those services. In the last fiscal year, there were 4 treatments out in Daytona North. There was 1 treatment out in the Rima Ridge area and 2 in the Espanola area. And just a reminder, the reason we list those 3 areas specifically is because Rima Ridge and Espanola both have a special taxing district where we do raise a small amount of money from those residents, specifically for mosquito services. And Daytona North, you had that old front footage charge that you're no longer implementing as of this past year, but we used some of that revenue towards that, and we are still using some of the leftover revenue in that to provide service out to Daytona North until those funds are no longer out there. For the rest of the unincorporated part of the county that's outside of the mosquito district, we do not provide mosquito services in any way to the rest of that because we don't raise tax revenue from the rest of the county for that.
Is that airborne treatment?
No, that is not. We could not afford airborne treatment. It's only truck-based treatment.
Just truck-based. Okay.
So for example, a truck-based treatment for Daytona North, because it's all based on square mileage, is about $5,000 to $6,000. That same treatment done by a helicopter, which would be way more effective, would be about $25,000, and we don't have the fiscal bandwidth to do that, unfortunately. So that's just perspective. So 5 times the cost by helicopter, though it can be more effective because then you can spray people's backyards where truck spraying only gets so far, but that's a significant increase in tax expense. And then obviously we're right in the middle of the Citizens Academy, or actually towards the end of Citizens Academy. And in the first meeting in June, you'll be seeing all of the graduates of this year's Academy. I'll be able to proudly present them to you all the first June meeting in a couple weeks. All right, so a couple other things in our department over the last year or so. So we're a small department of 6, but last year we did have 31 active volunteers. They weren't all necessarily concurrent. We had about 20 of them concurrently. Some drop off, some add on. But we did peak out at 31, of which 4 of those were college interns. So we were very excited about that. We actually have a new college intern that just joined us a couple weeks ago for the summer, and we may get a second one. So we're very excited about that. Unfortunately, we don't pay them, but they come here and work to get their college credit. So we're very happy to be able to do that. So over 4,000 hours of service, over 140,000 hours of labor charges saved by the work that these amazing volunteers do in our department. Last year, we had staff that went over to Columbia County after Hurricane Debbie to help them recover from Hurricane Debbie. We had county staff that went to Dixie after Hurricane Helene. So almost directly basically across the other side of the state from here. And then obviously Hurricane Milton, we had direct impacts here that we're still working off and on with FEMA since then. Last year we had a great big exercise involving all of our response partners in our community, as well as some state agencies. The school district was gracious enough during school break to let us use FPC as an active shooter exercise, and we did a full-scale exercise out there where the law enforcement went and took care of the bad guy, and the fire rescue and paramedics went and took care of the injured folks, and we helped coordinate all of that, and it was a very good learning experience and a great way for us to learn where areas for improvement are in our response to events like that hopefully never, ever happen in our community. I think some of you all know this too, but we also manage a lot of grants in emergency management in the downtime. Some of those grants aren't necessarily work that we do, but we manage the back end, the administrative end of it. One of them is the Bull Creek Fish Camp that we're overseeing. General Services is running with the project, but we're managing the grant reporting with the state. Same thing, Nexus Code Plus, Holly in the library program, they're doing all the work, but we're managing the back-end reporting with the state and the grant requirements. The Fairground Exhibit Hall, which I'm going to show you guys in a second, I have a really good update to share with you about that. We're also overseeing a couple flood grants that used to be part of land management under when Mike Legassi was here. We took those over and been working with the Regional Planning Council on those. And last year, I think I might have shared, I don't remember if I had a chance to share this or not, but if you hadn't noticed, there, on top of the old antenna tower between here and the EOC, there's a thing that makes a little bit of noise on top. It's a radar. So one of the long-term issues we've had in this community is the fact that we don't have great radar coverage from the National Weather Service. So we did get a state grant to fund putting a radar here in Flagler County. We have access to the data set, which is not the be-all and end-all, because more importantly, we're waiting for the Weather Service to have access. The contractor and the Weather Service have been talking over the last couple of weeks, and hopefully in the next month or so, our radar will be feeding directly to the Weather Service in Jacksonville. It does all the weather alerting for us. So we're very excited to see that project actually come to completion and have them have full access to that radar 24/7. And then roof, if you haven't, I'm sure you've noticed this, the EOC roof has changed colors. So that was a federal grant that we were able to get that covered 90% of the expense. So the actual roofing part is done. There's some other things still going on. There's painting happening. Gutters have to go back on. So and General Services has been amazing and working with them and a contractor to get that done for us. So we're very excited about that and very excited that we'll have a true 180 mile an hour roof on that building. Josh, I think I'm frozen with the clicker. There we go. All right. So I know this has been in the news a lot, FEMA changes, and it's something I am watching literally change hour by hour on certain days. Big changes potentially to what FEMA is or isn't at the federal level. Our main concern, obviously, is the ability to continue to receive funding after major disasters. Back in January, the president signed an order creating a council to assess FEMA. I'm kind of paraphrasing it. Had a very long name, but basically to assess FEMA, basically advise the president on the ability of FEMA to address and solve disasters in our country and then make recommendations. That group meets for the first time later this week. And then following that January 24th presidential order, there was another one on the 19th, which was called Achieving Efficiency Through State and Local Preparedness, which is where the federal government, or the executive branch particularly, looked at the suite of grants provided by Department of Homeland Security. One of those grants was already canceled, which was a mitigation grant. We did not have any projects under that grant, so we Flagler County did not lose out. There were other jurisdictions in Florida throughout the country that did lose out on that. That was something known as BRIC, was the acronym for that grant program. Like, knock on wood, we did not have any projects under that program. But the projects that were in place were told to stop, and those that and then the upcoming funding year was taken away. There are looking at changes. There have been hinted changes to the disaster grant program. So the public assistance grant program, the ones that make us partially whole after we have a large disaster, the president has hinted that he wants greater ownership at the state and local government level. And what my gut tells me we'll most likely see is it'll be harder for us to get declared after disaster. So storms like the ones we've seen the last few years where we didn't really get hurricane level impacts, but we had very bad tropical storm type impacts in our community, it is possible that we would not get federal declarations for those types of events. Not saying that Florida wouldn't. Where the landfall is, they probably would still, which is very much going back the way it was about 10, 15 years ago. It was much harder to get declared for federal disaster declaration. So it looks like we're probably, the pendulum swinging back that way again. So we don't know that as a fact, but on multiple times the president and the DHS secretary have hinted if that's where they're going. Secretary Noem had mentioned that we will hear something as early as summer of this year. So we don't know. We haven't, until it's in writing, we don't know. But it's definitely something the emergency management committee is talking about, and we're very concerned. I wanted to definitely make sure you are all aware that there, and I've definitely told our administration definitely to be aware that there may be a change in that process, and it might be a little harder for us if we don't have significant damages community-wide to get those kinds of declarations. Which, again, stresses very much the importance of us maintaining solid reserves to make sure we can cover those expenses. All right, shifting gears to hurricane season. So the Weather Service has not issued their forecast yet, but as I tell you guys every year, the forecast is not the most important thing because if we have the quietest year ever, one storm hitting our community is bad, right? So, but the forecast from Colorado State University, they come out of the gate first every year, is a slightly above average storm. Their forecast for this year is less than their forecast for last year, but is above the typical average over the last 30 years. So the average of 14 named storms, they're showing 17. The average of 7 hurricanes, they're showing 9. Major, which is category 3 or higher, they're showing 4, where the average is 3. So just slightly above average. But again, doesn't truly matter other than it makes really good sound bites. The news loves it. When the Hurricane Center, in about a week or so, issues their forecast, it'll be all over the news. And their forecast, they don't use fixed numbers, they use ranges. So historically, you'll see their ranges be either side of Colorado states. A couple number digits lower, a couple numbers lower, a couple numbers higher than what you see up there from Colorado State. What's the main impact for staying above average hurricane season? It really is ocean water temperatures. They are still higher than the 30-year average, though they are looking that it might be a little lower than last year, which is why the forecast is a little lower than last year. La Nina versus neutral versus El Nino. Right now we're in a neutral period, so neutral period really doesn't really have an impact one way or the other on hurricane forming. Saharan dust, there is a lot of Saharan dust out right now, but that could be gone in a month or so. Volcanic ash, and there's been a lot of volcanic activity the last couple of years. I think I might have brought this up last year in Central America and the Caribbean Rim. So because of that, if there was an eruption, that can actually help weaken the chances for hurricanes forming. So that's very exciting. If that does happen, not exciting for the people that live near the volcanoes erupting, obviously. So the season is June 1st to the 30th. Doesn't mean we can't have hurricanes before the 1st or after November 30th. Most of our storms for Florida and the Atlantic coast occur August to October. And last year we had 18 total named storms. And something that is changing this year is the cone is more precise than last year. So it'll inherently be a skinnier cone than it was like, which is good. So that means less areas that aren't going to be impacted or aren't going to be covered as much. But again, remember the cone, it talks about the center of the storm, not the entire extent of the storm. So the cone only tracks the eye of the storm. It doesn't track the extent. You could have extent much further out. Additionally, the Weather Service in the past used to only just see the cone and then maybe colored hurricane tropical storms right along the coastline. Now they're carrying that further inland to make it better messaging. So you'll see on the news on TV, well, you'll see where those impacts are better messaged to the general public, which then helps us get our message out better if the TV channels and the internet saying the same thing. So that is definitely a big jump forward in helping get the message out if a storm is approaching us. Those are the names for the year. Nobody's name is up there, so that's a good thing. Hurricane risks, again, just to reiterate for our community, but this is anyone in the U.S., our big risk and concern is the water, not the wind in a hurricane. We have very good building codes in Florida. They may not be perfect, but they are very wind resistant compared to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. So our big concern really is about the storm surge and or heavy flooding rains that carry people away, as we saw last year up in as far north of Tennessee, right? It was where there massive flooding from the hurricane, but the winds really weren't an issue. So that's definitely continuing what our focus is about. And our evacuations are all based on where that water may be, not where the wind may be. Our preparations, we actually have a new debris contract that you all approved a couple months ago in partnership with all of our municipalities. We're actually working on the same thing with a disaster recovery contractor should we need their assistance for a larger event to help us with the fiscal side of things. We have not had to use them in the last few storms, but we're also working through issuing that. It's actually out right now, again, in partnership with our municipalities. That's something that's been very important to me, that when we do contracts for disaster recovery and response, that we're doing it together with the cities and we're not competing for attention from some of these contractors because we're a smaller community, that we're doing it together as a team. We held our big hurricane season update last Friday with all of our partners, and we actually have upcoming up in a week or so, and we have a meeting with all the local media to sit down with them, kind of an informal meeting where we kind of walk through evacuations with them and the hurricane season forecast and any questions they may have, that we kind of do it as we've been doing it for the last few years in partnership with our communications department. Over the last year or so, we've been able to use some grant funds to improve our backup communications capability in case all of the fancy stuff fails, that we have the ability to continue to operate should that happen. And then we've already talked about outreach events. Evacuations, just real quick, you all saw this last year. Last year we had the big change in going from the A, B, C, D, E, F zones to the two bigger zones, which are potential hurricane evacuation zone and potential lake flood zone. Instead of the pink zone, or the potential hurricane evacuation zone, is made up of what was formerly A, B, C, D, and E. And I think you're aware of the reason we changed that was because of the confusion with the Palm Coast lettered sections, because the B zone had nothing to do with the B section. But the new science also made that feasible for us. So we now evacuate by neighborhood. So the whole point of these zones is to let residents know if you live in one of these zones, you may have to evacuate for hurricanes. As the storm approaches, we'll name the neighborhoods and actually use major streets to define the area being evacuated. So that was not feasible 5 years ago. It became somewhat feasible about 3 years ago, and then we obviously locked it in as of last year. And then just a quick reminder, we brought this up with our partners last week, that these days we no longer close our bridges. If it's not safe to be on the road, it's not safe to be on the bridge either, but we're not going to stick people on the bridge and say it's closed when a storm is passing over. Now, if the bridge is damaged or the road's damaged, that's a different story, because we don't want, after the storm, we don't want people driving on it if there is actual damage. But in general, we will not close the road. It will also not stop people evacuating. But again, if it's not safe on the road, we don't want people on the bridge either. The other quick thing, too, is all of our evacuations in Flagler County are mandatory. But as we are a free country, we cannot force anybody out of their home. But there is no such thing as voluntary evacuation. Either we believe there is a risk or we believe there isn't a risk to a neighborhood. Sheltering, we continue our major partnership, our amazing partnership with the school district. I can't say how appreciative of them, how they are working with us. Not every county has the same relationship that we have with ours. Ours bends over backwards to make sure that we can make sheltering in the schools very easy and straightforward with very little effort. So that's an amazing partnership with them. Is also our special needs shelter with the health department is an amazing partnership with them, and with staffing the special needs shelter for us. So it truly takes a community, all different agencies to come together and really make those shelters operate. And obviously, a big thing that's actually on the state's mind throughout this entire state is trying to transition primary shelters out of schools. And last year, as you all know, we were very, very blessed to get $10 million from the state legislature to build a non-school-based shelter. I think you'll see more of those start popping up around the state. We're not the first, I think we're number 3 to do something like that in the last couple of decades, but we're the first in a long time to start that. So it's very nice that that's a trend they're looking at. When I'm done with this, in a couple slides here, I'm actually going to show you a quick update on where we're at with the Kennelmans.
And pet shelter, too. We have great volunteers that help us.
Yes, with the Humane Society, I don't know what we'd do without them. We don't have county staff that could do that, and they are volunteers as well as their staff. Bend over backwards to make sure that we can also evacuate people with their normal domestic pets, not strange exotic ones. And then just our messaging, real quick, every year. Last year, you all saw we brought out a new guide that we think was more user-friendly. We stress very importantly to our residents, we speak to groups about making sure that you can stay off the grid with no electricity or running water in your home if it is safe to do so for at least a week, if you can afford to do so, is building a year-round disaster kit to have that. At this point in time, usually in this meeting, I'm telling you when the sales tax holiday is coming, but since there is not a state budget that's been passed yet, at this point in time, we don't know if there's going to be a sales tax holiday, unfortunately. And then people having a plan, our alert Flagler system. I know you all very much help us get that message out about that for the residents to sign up for that free program. And then in mid-June, we're actually kicking off our next class of the free community emergency response team class. That'll take about 3 weeks. It's going to be done Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in the afternoons this time. So we're very excited about that. And then the last couple things, Josh, if you don't mind pulling up the first PDF. So this is the fairgrounds. The building on your left is the existing Cattleman's Hall. And then you have the 3 barns clustered together. So where the bathroom is currently in that grass to the north of those sites is where the new facility will sit. This is our first rendering of it. The parking lot will probably not happen below. That was just part of the rendering because we have that grass parking there. So that's how the building will sit on that property generally. It's 10,000 square feet of usable evacuee space with about another 5,000 square feet of storage and kitchen and bathrooms and things like that. So, and then there'll be a little bit of road reconfiguration to make it fit on that property.
How does it?
Go ahead.
How does the 10,000 square feet compare to the gym at the high school? FP?
Significantly bigger.
Bigger.
Yes. Because the issue with the high school gyms is they also have bleachers in them that can't go away, and you lose a lot of square footage because of those bleachers. Right. And plus, they don't have as much electric. This is being designed to have adequate electric to plug in people's CPAP machines and all that additional stuff that we wish we had in the gyms.
Good. Thank you.
The Historical Society may want you to preserve that bathroom. It's been there a long time.
Oh, it's an antique, all right. It's definitely an antique. I'll take some good pictures for it before it goes.
Right. Document.
I don't know if anyone's going to miss that bathroom. And then, Josh, if you can show the next PDF, please. So that's kind of the look. Ignore the name. That was just the name of the project. That's why it's a very long name on the front of the facility. The colors are just conceptual, but the idea is that we're heading on the current path we're heading on now is an electrical building with a masonry lower piece to it. That'll be built to the same building code as the EOC, so 180 mile an hour wind resistant building code with a backup water supply actually on there too if the city of Benel water was to go down. And then the inside, the last one, Joshua, please. And that's the general concept. So the orangey beige in the middle and those little squares on there are really meant to envision their 500 cots. So they literally did measure out how 500 cots would fit in the building. The front is the bottom of the screen. You come in a lobby, either side would be men's and ladies' restrooms with showers in them as well. And then storage on either side of that. And then at the very top of the map, at the back of the building, would be a kitchen that can service either side of the building, as well as more storage and electrical, mechanical, and IT room. And then on my right, which I guess is already if you're facing your screens, is that grayish area to the right would be where all the mechanical stuff would go, and as well as a generator. And that'll also be in a protective enclosure to make sure it's not damaged during a storm. So, and this is literally as live as 2 hours ago. We were meeting with them, and they went over that with us. So this is really the second conceptual drawing. They actually showed up to our very first meeting with a concept just from reading the RFP before you all even executed a contract with them. They already showed up to our first meeting with an idea based on what they heard. They actually, part of their team is actually here if you have any questions for them. And then they came to this meeting with this, and it's very much like, I feel like they're reading my mind. Which is very, very exciting. It makes the process work very, very well. And same thing with our engineering team and general services, which really helped. Mike Dixon particularly helped me really come up with the concept as we were thinking about this while we're waiting for the state to send a contract at the end of last year. So it's very much a team effort, and I'm very excited about where we're going with this. Any questions?
Very good. Looks good. Who's the architect team in the back?
Stand up. There.
Well, thank you for coming out this evening. Looks great. I don't have any specific questions. Anything, Commissioner Hanson?
No, we look forward to having it built, obviously. 'cause,
Very much so.
We need it.
In a very tight timeline.
It's a
It's gonna
fast
be-
track. For
It's going to
sure.
be exciting to have it. Yeah.
Thank you for the
Thank you
update.
all.
Now, I saw that, right, there's, people are already looking off the coast of Africa at,
Yes.
it nonstop.
Off
Welcome
of
to
Africa,
social media.
there's actually a lot of activity off the coast of South America. Luckily, that is impossible for that to come up here the way the weather patterns are, but there's a lot of moisture down there already. But then there's also Saharan dust that's sitting over the Atlantic right now, too. So.
Well, a lot of ours seem to start around the Yucatan and come up
The last few years,
Yeah.
yes. Oddly enough, the
Start
last few
down
years.
there, they come up, yeah. So,
Keep, plug your social media sites for information. Where does everybody go?
So whether you're using Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, it's Flagler EOC, all one word, so as in Flagler Emergency Operations Center.
Right.
Flagler EOC, and then the website for the county for emergency management is flaglercounty.gov/emergency. It's got preparedness information now, but during the actual storms, it'll have all the specific storm information right on there.
The questions, they need to go straight to the source.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything else? Well, thank you very much. It's always, unfortunately, we know when you're presenting,
May.
it's the kickoff to hurricane season, but
So I apologize for that.
but we thank you for sharing the information and bringing us up to speed. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And our second presentation is on the environmentally sensitive lands. This is an update presented by Eric Revelta. He's our Public Lands and Natural Resource Manager. Welcome, sir.
Afternoon. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for having me here. This is, I think, my first.
First,
presentation to
yeah.
the board, even though we have met. Yes. Sorry, I'm really bad at this. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are on acquisitions, but I also like to start with where we are with our program. The program is actually one of the earliest in Florida. It started in 1988, and it had a huge approval, a 64% approval rating from county voters that were interested in us in the county acquiring environmentally sensitive lands. That was revisited in 2002 for additional money because we did a great job spending what we had, and so it had to be reauthorized for additional bond money. And 74% of the county residents voted in favor. And then that program sort of ended in 2008 and was reauthorized and extended for another 20 years. And again, 64% of county voters supported the program. And that support is really a great measure of the ability of the county in acquiring land and managing the land that it has acquired. So what are the program objectives? There's actually two. These are actually put out on the ballots when people vote. And essentially you have, it's almost a dual priorities. On one side is conservation for like wildlife and habitats. And on the other side is having a recreational component. How do we make this land accessible to the public? There is no point in buying land that people and the public cannot enjoy. So it's kind of like a halfway point between balancing those two aspects. And in looking at those two, at one point in around 2010, there was an effort to sort of coalesce all these different priorities and come up with actual objectives that could be used to determine if a property meets the intent of the program. And so there are the 6 criteria that are up there, and usually for an ESL acquisition, you have to at least meet 3 of them before we are able to actually recommend moving forward with the acquisition. As you can see, about half of them are preservation of natural resources and conservation and wildlife corridor. And then the other, there's one for historical preservation. And then there's a couple more for economic development and recreational value of the property. So what have we done so far? So from 1988 to 2024, we've acquired 25 properties for the county. The total has been 5,582 acres, and that's only the areas that we have acquired through ESL. That's not all the county lands that are owned. For example, you have things like Graham Swamp, that's 4,000 acres that we acquired from, or were transferred from the St. Johns River Water Management District. That adds to our portfolio of properties, but it's not just those 5,000 acres. In total, we've spent $27 million to date from the ESL funds that have been collected, and we've also pulled in another $30 million from outside funding sources. So usually, a lot of times, we have matching funds that are coming from the state, coming from DEP, coming from Florida Communities Trust, and the City of Palm Coast. So this is our process. It's just a very brief overview of our process. So it's an 8-step process. It starts with somebody who doesn't have necessarily to be the property owner, but somebody who wants to nominate a property for acquisition. We receive it, we evaluate it. We do have to have a willing seller. So if the seller, the owner of the property, does not want to sell, we're not going to be able to buy it. It's pretty simple. But we start that review, and we start by sort of looking at a desktop review of what attributes from an ecological perspective, how does the property meet the ESL objectives. Then we sit down with the LAC committee, and we take a good look at, with them, kind of work through all the different things that are going into the 14 criteria that we have that really feed into those 5 that we saw in the previous slide, and rank whether or not the property is going to be in our A list. And our A list is A properties that are considered to be, all of them, equally high priority for us to acquire. So once we do that, we come to the board approves, we go negotiate, and if we have a willing seller that wants to move forward with take our money, then we are in good shape, and we come back to LAC, get a second read. Hey, you guys still like it for this price? And that's really what the question comes down to. They make a recommendation, the board looks at it, and makes the final decision on whether to acquire or not. And then at the very back end, I come back to the picture, because we get to write a management plan and get to figure out how it is that we're going to implement all those things that we're setting out to implement. And from there on, we just take care of it. So there are 2 main strategies that we're currently pursuing. Fee simple acquisitions, pretty straightforward. We take the money and give it to the property owner. Property owner gives us the property. We have control of the property. The second one is a conservation easement. That is a less than fee. And essentially what we are doing, in summary, is buying certain development rights on the property. We're agreeing to this property is going to be not going to be developed any further. Now that, and it's an important distinction, that doesn't mean that the land will be managed for conservation purposes. It will continue to be managed, if it's silviculture or pasture land, it will continue to be managed for that primary purpose, but it will be done in a conservation-friendly manner. And so that it's not the same as a piece of land that we buy for ESL and we set aside and say we have a requirement to do prescribed fire and remove invasives. Those requirements may not be there under a conservation easement. So there are obviously some advantages and disadvantages to both strategies. I think the ones that stand out usually is the cost, right? When you're buying land, it tends to be expensive. When you're buying an easement, it tends to be cheaper. But easements do take a lot longer to negotiate and talk about what exactly it is that property owner wants to do with it. How does it fit into what we're trying to achieve from a conservation standpoint, and then coming up with a money value for that trade-in. There's also timing, right? Those negotiations are going to take longer than a straight-up acquisition. We get an appraisal, we get a survey, we may be ready to close in 90 days. It could be even less time, depending on what kind of things you discover along the way. But those are some of the main differences. I think the one advantage on when you have a conservation easement is the county is now making a commitment to manage the land. So there is a trade-in for that, right? It's not really for conservation, but we're also not assuming a financial responsibility long-term to actually do something with it. On the other hand, we also do lose the ability to open it up for recreation, because most landowners are not going to be willing to open their land for recreation. So those are the trades that happen when you go in one direction versus the other. So right now, talking about funding, we have about $10 million on state appropriation bill that are available for us to purchase lands that are approved by the LAC committee and are located within the Florida Wildlife Corridor. So that's available for us to go and make some purchases. That usually has a year and a half, so it was appropriated in 2025, so we have until January of, actually 2024, so we have until January 2026 for those funds to be used up. Now, talking to FWC, which is kind of the agency overseeing the funds, they're fairly positive that if we're making progress, they can extend those funds. So they don't just go away on January 1st. We could be able to extend it a little bit longer if we're negotiating some good deals. And then we have ESL funds. We have it about 9.8 million right now. And again, is environmentally sensitive lands that meet those objectives. And that is in total almost $20 million, which is a good problem for me to have, right? As long as I have willing sellers. So right now, what do we have? What active projects do we have? We have several out there that you have seen. We have so all of these are either on the A list or the B list at the moment. And there are a couple in here that are moving forward that Peterson tracked. 3,819 acres is a pretty good chunk. We're moving forward on that. We're going through revising the appraisals, and hopefully we will, they seem interested, so hopefully it is something that we can add. I just wanted to put it out there so you would see what some of the sources of the funding sources are and the type of acquisition that we're planning to do. So countywide conservation needs assessment. So this is something that I started when I was hired. One of the things that I was going through and looking for was like, okay, where do we? I've been around Flagler County for almost 20 years, fairly familiar with the county, but it's almost like, well, where should we be buying this land, right? We have this money, we have this priority. So from an ecological perspective, where should we be really considering to make the purchases? And into this evaluation, I went ahead and pulled all this data, had staff help me out, put it on a grid with different cells, and try to determine, okay, where should we be going? And this is what it looks like. And so in this map, the black means it's already in conservation, so we don't need to buy that. But anything that is red or orange, so a 5 or a 4, should be a high priority. And that's based on just those ecological data sets that we pulled out. You could see some areas light up really well up in the northeast end of the county, coming south to the Lake Diston area, coming down around Crescent Lake. So that's kind of the direction that we're trying to do. And then here you could see this really 4 blocks that come out of that. The northern block is that Dunn's Creek to Matanzas Conservation Corridor. You cannot see it, but if you follow that north end of Crescent Lake, there is the Dunn's Creek Conservation Area that is managed by St. John's River Water Management District. It's in Putnam County, so it's next to us. And then Dunn's Creek State Park. And those are really good big pieces of land that we could connect to on that end. And then you have Hawk Creek, and you have all that connection along the west side. On the east side of the lake and coming down towards Lake Diston, I think that's also an important connection for us to get to fill in that gap for the Ocala to Matanzas Conservation Corridor. And that is all I have. Any questions?
Very good. Questions? So we get to stick around. We have an important item coming up too to
Yes.
talk about. So excited about that.
Correct. I need help spending that money.
Like everything else, it has to be done quickly, right?
Yeah.
But no, very good summary of ESL. I think the important takeaway is the timeline of 2028 is coming soon.
Correct. And we're very active at the moment. I think our last purchase before the Kelly parcel last year was in 2013. So for a while there was a period of time where there was not a whole lot of activity. And all of a sudden, at this point, we are seeing a lot of activity. As you can see on that list is people that are contacting us and interested in us having a look at their land, which is the other, one of the reasons for having that primary evaluation of where we should be buying is that we could potentially create almost like a footprint of like, these are the areas that we really want to buy. If you're interested in selling, come to us. So I think that will be also an important tool, kind of communicating to the public that we are looking for property. And if you're in these areas and you are conservation minded, you should contact Flagler County.
And I like on the heat map, the connections were obvious. So where you have being able to, wildlife to traverse from the southern boundary to the northern boundary, especially on the west side, there's opportunities to create that corridor.
Absolutely. And that's our best shot with, with future development coming the way it is coming, usually coming from the east. The west side is going to be our main way to get that connection to be done. And we have a lot of land. I mean, I know we think this only shows Princess Place, but it's Princess Place and it's Favor Dykes and it's Matanzas State Forest. There's a lot of conservation lands in that northeast corner of the county and southern St. John's that if we can really build a connection, it will mean that it won't be an isolated island surrounded by development along the I-95 corridor. And that's really one of the main priorities that we should have.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you
you
very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, it's good stuff tonight. Thank you, everybody, for sitting through. We had good presentations and proclamations. Next part of the agenda is on community outreach. This is a 30-minute time slot. It's been allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic that's not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. Speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct comments to the commission. So at this time, I'll open it up for public comment if anybody wishes to address the commission. All right, everybody's here for agenda items. All right. Is there one? Okay, good. I thought you were leaving, so welcome.
Around. Hi, I know some of you, but I am Katie Biancanello. I reside at County Road 2434, County Road 304 in Bunnell, Florida. I just wanted to come and make sure that all of you, and I know that you do, have the project proposed for the rezoning of 1,842 acres in Bunnell on your radar. I was witness to the meeting on May 7th. We had community members speak for over an hour and a half, if not 2 hours, to all of the concerns. And I just really wanted to make sure that if there's any support or anything that you all can do, I know some of you have already offered your public support, and I'm very appreciative of that. The fact that this got passed through without the project even being defined was shocking. To not know what this land will end up being. The size of the project is shocking. It's about 3 animal kingdoms if you put in how much that acreage is, if you put it into perspective. And it's just, it would tax all of our resources in Flagler County. You guys already support the city of Bunnell in safety and security. And we just can't afford to allow this to take place. So I don't know what else can be done, but I just know that the way that this was pushed through, my concern is that it will end up on the agenda a day or two before a meeting. We won't make it there. And then this is going to get pushed through. And then once Pandora's box is opened, it's open. And what can we do? So hopefully more to come on this, but any support that you all can give us, we would greatly appreciate it. It does affect the K section is directly across the street, so Quail Hollow would be impacted. Hospitals, schools are all less than 10 miles away from this project. And this project very well could be the Belvedere fuel depot that Orman has declined, that Palm Coast has declined. I don't know anyone that secures a lawyer just because for a zoning project. I don't know anyone that puts so much time and effort just because without having an intention for the land, and it just doesn't feel right. So I really implore you all to help and support in any way that you can. Thank you for your time tonight. It was nice to see all of you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for your work on the broadband issue on the west side. Yeah. We don't forget.
Now we have more work.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else for public comment this evening? All right, we'll close public comment and come back to the board for any comments on consent items. Is there anything anybody wants to highlight on consent? Okay.
Not for me.
Anything that anybody wants to pull from consent?
No.
No, nothing pulled, no comments. We will then go for approval of consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Carney. All right, call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, we're going to move quickly through the packet. Item 8A was the Industrial Development Authority. That has been postponed. We'll move to 8B, and this is quasi-judicial. Project number 2024-120025, request for an application for review to amend a plat requirement for installation of fire sprinklers in the Hammock Mooring South subdivision. This is quasi-judicial. Does anybody have any ex parte to disclose?
No, sir.
And I do not. All right, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Mangle, good evening.
Good evening, Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director. The first item that I'm bringing to you is this little unique. We've had one of these a few years back. This is an amendment to a plat addendum. And this was put in place, we believe, because of a utility system that was not functioning adequately at the time of the initial plat approval in 2002. Ocean City Utilities had low flow in this area, and that after timing that's involved with this is the project. Hammock Mooring South was the 8 lots that were platted. After time, as you may know the history, the county came in, took over the Ocean City utility system, and then eventually those assets were transferred to FGUA, to the Florida Governmental Utility Authority. We now, Florida Governmental Utility Authority, bulk purchases its water and then sends off its sewer to be treated within the city of Palm Coast. But FGUA is a utility provider here. And do have a better utility system, but still some limitations that we'll acknowledge as we go through the report here. Here's the plat, what it looks like on the platted lots themselves. What you're seeing here with this is A1A then to the top, which is going to be your east boundary. North is to the left, south is to the right. The East Coast Canal, that portion there, vacated canal, is to the bottom to the west. And so you can see there quite a bit of the back of these lots, the west portion of these lots lies within that vacated portion of the canal, drainage and maintenance easements back there. And so that's how these were platted. Reduces the lot size down some. Access is through a single driveway that you can see here. You can see the apron and the throat, and then you have an access and maintenance easement across the front. That's part of the plat, additionally including landscaping. And that's part of the design of the subdivision and its improvements. Specific requirement that the applicant's seeking is this section from the plat addendum, and the reason why we're here is because board retains the authority on amending plat addenda. And so that because this was adopted by the board as part of the plat, this effectively is an amendment to the plat. And this language that we're looking at for the relief that's been requested by the applicant is from a sprinkler requirement. The building code does not require this sprinkler requirement. The building code kicks in on 4 stories or greater. And so this is not something that's currently within our regulations. This is purely a relief from what effectively has become a zoning requirement with the sprinkler section that you see here cited. And so here's our summary of this request. You can see back to 2002, the date on the plat, the language that I mentioned from the sprinkler requirement itself, the request on the applicant, they're building a home, the 4th home that's here. And then at the time of the final plat approval, as I mentioned, Ocean City Utilities was here. There was a flow test done at the prompting of staff, I believe. They went through, and the applicant on January 20th, 2025, did this flow test, found static pressure at 62 psi, residual pressure at 36, the flow pressure at 840 gallons per minute. Our fire review came back saying that they would prefer 900 gallons per minute to be there on that pipe outside. Part of the packet that was submitted showed, this is submitted by the applicant, showed the location of the fire hydrant. And then in yellow, you can see on the left-hand side the proposed home location. One thing that we did acknowledge as part of this review is that 2 of the homes that were there were permitted with sprinklers, 2 of the homes were not. And so whether it's through oversight or whatever reasons we have, we did not catch the plat addendum in its text at the time when we were doing the review. And so we have 2 that have them, 2 that don't. And be honest with you, we don't know if the 2 that have them have maintained them. One of the issues we had before when we brought the previous application for you that was up in Painter's Walk for similar relief was that we were finding out that folks would put them in and then they would end up vacating the systems. They would end up, because of the cost, they would no longer maintain them. They'd take the meters and uninstall them and just leave the fire sprinkler lines within their homes. Where we are right now with this, for purposes of the record, is the contractor has submitted their plans, has been issued their plans, just out of a sense of timing, inclusive of the fire sprinklers, but they are still seeking relief. And so they've actually accommodated within their building plans right now the sprinklers to be installed. And so if this is granted, then the relief would allow them to continue their construction and not have to install the separate fire sprinklers. And those that have installed the fire sprinklers then would no longer have to maintain them effectively if this addendum is, amendment to the plat addendum is approved. This is the hydrant flow test that I mentioned in my presentation that was completed and showed the 840 on the flow gallons per minute. And as I mentioned in the staff report, we did have planning board review this, and they did recommend approval. They had it over 2 meetings. We had initially come in, heard the applicant's request, and then the planning board had come back and said, where does the HOA sit with this? Where do the other owners sit with this? And what this graphic shows, part of your packet, that the planning board had asked for the consent of the owners, that they were aware of this, that they knew this was coming, and that they effectively had agreed to or consented to the change. And this is the signatures from each of those owners then within the 8 lots here in Hammock Mooring South. And so with that, I have 3 options for the board. Approve the request to delete the fire sprinkler requirement at Section 11 of the plat addendum for Hammock Mooring South, finding that the fire sprinkler requirement is no longer necessary due to improved potable water availability for fire protection. Alternatively, you could deny this, leave the fire sprinkler requirement in place, or as a third option, you continue this to a time and date certain. I'll submit my report for the record and wait any questions you have. And then Mr. Melvin, I believe Ms. Smith with Cobb Cole are present on behalf of the applicant for any corrections or any questions that you may have. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll close.
Do they want to come up and say anything?
I think they're here for questions, but I'll also defer to them if they'd like to come up and make a presentation. They certainly can.
Okay. Are
Thank
they
you.
here?
They are.
Yeah. Good evening.
Hi, Alana Smith with Cobb Cole Law Firm, One Daytona Boulevard, and then I'll let Jim introduce himself.
Jim Bellin with Inspire Development Group. I'm the contractor.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thank
Did
you.
you want to have anything to present or just answer questions?
We're just here for questions. I think Adam did a great job giving an overview of the request, so if you guys have any questions, just let us know.
Okay.
We're just approving it for one house?
You would be amending the plat for
the whole thing?
For the whole thing.
Correct,
So
for the
remaining
entire
lots.
The whole thing?
subdivision, correct, yeah.
Okay. Good answer.
So Adam, if there's 2 houses right now that have the actual suppression system, so they can actually cap them off and not have them at all?
Yes, ma'am. That's an option, and they may already have done so. We have not, and there's been no requirement that we inspect them and maintain them.
So if we have a multi-house fire and they're all within paper-thin distance from each other, that one hydrant's going to service that whole area, plus the trucks that come with water on them, most likely.
It will, and it's not uncommon, I think, from other examples, other situations elsewhere in the county. And I don't think this is particularly unique.
They'll just send more trucks. Okay.
Go back to the picture with the hydrant location.
Yes.
Right there.
Right there. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I can, I'd just like to add something. 25 years ago, when the Planning Review Board reviewed the preliminary plat, that fire hydrant wasn't there And there was also notes to not only install the hydrant, but also provide access. So 25 years later, you have the access that's required, and the hydrant is flowing 840 gallons per minute, which is 340 more than what the NFPA requires for a single-family residence. So 25 years later, you have the access and you have the fire hydrant, which is just a little more than 100 feet away. So the sprinklers shouldn't be required. Now, the two houses that do have the sprinklers were built 20 years ago. The two without it have been recently built within, I would say, the last 5 years.
When I was reviewing this, the first thing that came to mind was the PUD that we reviewed in the hammock, where we had different setbacks due to proximities of potential three-story buildings. So we had this whole discussion in a recent PUD.
About sprinklers.
Yeah, about sprinklers. But it's interesting, at that time, we didn't talk about how they're maintained. So I think in the future, if that comes back up, we have to have language in there about maintenance. At the time, the discussion was, and this is again for the comp plan land development code we're going through, is being conscious of setbacks, especially for taller buildings. The fire marshal was adamant that there wasn't sufficient space between the buildings for three-story buildings, which was our discussion at the point for the new PUD that came before us. We've already got two buildings in here that don't have them. We don't have maintenance requirements, so even moving forward, if we require them, there's nothing in there.
Now, only one of the houses, I think, is three-story. The one I'm building is two.
Right.
And the ones next to it are also two-story.
Right. Now, would you be adverse to having the signatures redone with a notary so that they are more official, specific to the replat, instead of just on that one paper with the digital signatures? Would that be acceptable so that it was more formally? It was, the applicant went and got the signatures, and kudos for them doing it, but now I think the county should make sure we have an official page or something for them to sign and have notarized.
Yeah, we can coordinate that with the owners.
So if for a motion, I would just add a notarized signature on a form that the county provides and be a little more official. But I don't have any. I've watched your planning board meetings and I'm pretty well versed in.
Oh, okay.
And everything up to this point. So at this time, we'll go. If you can, I don't hear any more questions. Any more questions? We'll open it up for public comment. So if there's anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item, you can come up now. All right, seeing no one, we'll go close public comment and bring it back for any additional questions or for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the removal of the requirement for installation of fire sprinklers for the Hammock Mooring South subdivision, and additionally that we have provided for our review the approval by the residents that live there and have a certified copy of their
You want them
signatures.
notarized?
Yeah, notarized,
Okay.
certified, notarized.
You have that for the clerk has the motion? Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Carney. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you for the applicant for coming. All right, we'll move on to 8C. Consideration of award and contract to the North Florida Land Trust, a nonprofit organization under request for qualifications RSQ 24-052Q to assist with the implementation of the environmentally sensitive land program. Mr. Revelta, back again, sir. Now that you got all the butterflies out, we're good to go.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll see. I don't know if I'm looking forward to doing it more often or not, but we'll see.
Doing great.
I feel much better now. Anyway, this is I didn't put anything together because this is a contract that we have been negotiating and trying to award to the North Florida Land Trust to come in and help us out acquire more land. And I wanted to sort of give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. I'm sure everybody has heard about them, but they do great work. And they're here to answer any questions that we may have. But essentially, if you remember those 1 through 8 steps, our hope is for them to help us in steps 1. Well, maybe not so much 1, but 2 through 7. So a lot of the very labor-intensive middle of getting appraisals and title work and coordinating multiple properties, multiple owners, and some of those conservation easement negotiations. So they have the expertise, and so we're trying to take advantage of that.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, they can come up.
And this is the team, a very experienced team. Allison.
Hi. Just state your name and...
My name is Allison DeFore, and as you can tell, my voice is not strong, but my heart is. And if you'll bear with me for just a minute, I would be here for 3 purposes. To say thank you, to put a human face on us, and to give you certain assurances. 1, thank you for the opportunity to serve you in any way that we can that can help green up this part of Florida. That's what we do. That's all we do. We don't make money on it. We're here to serve you in any way that will help you, and that's it. 2, Ramesh Bush is with me. He is my land guy. He's probably the best land man in Florida. He set up the programs in Miami-Dade and in Alachua, and then he was with the Water Management District, and we stole him. Kim Hall is his right hand, and she was with the Water Management District and is probably the best land woman in the state of Florida. And finally, I'm Allison DeFore, and the assurance that I can give you is twofold. 1, I have a certain sensitivity, and we do collectively, to local government and sensitivities. I was sheriff of my home county, Key West, believe it or not, and my wife was a county commissioner and city commissioner at the same time in Duval. So we understand what you do, and we're going to be sensitive to that. And then 2, I was vice chairman of the Republican Party of Florida and the nominee of our party for lieutenant governor with Governor Martinez in 1990. So I can assure you we are not a bunch of academic theoreticians trying to come in and show you how to do what to do with your land. We're here to do deals and to do them as fast as we can. And with that, we're at your service. Happy to answer any questions. My team is with me, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Did the team have anything? I would like to hear a little bit about some of the recent area projects that you've worked on and acquired, maybe for other governments or...
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Ramesh Butch, and I'm the Director of Conservation Acquisitions for the North Florida Land Trust. When I got to the Land Trust, we had done exactly what Eric showed you earlier, that heat map, and it struck me as really geeky, but it didn't sort of focus the Land Trust on where the money was and where the needs were. So we went through an effort to reprioritize our work, and we came up with 6 priority preservation areas. So Flagler County is within our service area, but where in Flagler County would we be working? Where we looked at where the pressures were in terms of conservation need. We looked at where the funding was coming from at that time, and we ended up with 6 areas. So we buffer military bases in our area. So that's Camp Landing, Mayport, Jackson, Outlanding, Landing Field, White House. We preserve working landscapes, so that's agricultural property. to purchase typically conservation easements on those working landscapes. We preserve what we call the O2O, which is the Ocala to Osceola Wildlife Corridor, which is a corridor that runs from the Osceola National Forest up through the Ocala National Forest through Camp Blanding. And we've been pretty successful with that, and Kim Hall leads that effort. We also preserve our water resources. So we work with the water management districts. We have submitted an application recently to preserve land around Lafayette Blue Spring. We also do what we call community conservation. And so that's the one that we really want to talk about here, which is we do a couple of things. We can come in and help a local government, municipality, preserve green spaces. So some examples of that, we were working on, actually here at Lake Diston, we were working on the Kerr property and trying to negotiate that property on just behalf of the land trust and trying to bring in the district and bring in the county. We've also worked on in Amelia Island, up in Fernandina. We've preserved Little Nana Dunes. That was a $1.2 million project, preserving a historically African-American access to the dune system. So we have a lot of experience working with the local governments, but perhaps the work that I'm proudest of, because I come from local government, I've sat here for 20 years at different local governments, is we help local governments identify where they should be working in terms of, and also what kind of lands their community wants to see saved. We call that green printing. And so what we do is we have a process where we check in with the community, determine their conservation values. Is it ag land? Is it recreation land? Is it wetland? Is it more better access to outdoor recreation? What kinds of values do they want to see protected? And that usually comes from what's being lost. And so, if you're losing access to agricultural property, for example, we're working down in Highlands County. Highlands is very dependent on citrus, and you can imagine what's happening there with greening and hurricanes. They've lost 90% of their citrus industry. We are working to help them preserve that economic value within that ecosystem. And that's our green printing program. And so we set it up in Clay County recently, passed by 73% of the population, in a very conservative county because of the beltway that came through there. We helped Nassau County set up their program. So I'm particularly proud of the community conservation that we do because it's close to my heart. I think the best government's that which is closest to the people, and they know you. They know you from elementary school. They see you in the store. So I really appreciate working for local governments. And so we hold or have facilitated an interest in 44,000 acres to this point. Kim just closed our 100th conservation acquisition. So we've been very successful around the state. So again, I'll let Kim introduce herself and again, answer any specific questions you have.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, Kim Hall, North Florida Land Trust. Of course, I live in the county next door. I'm not from the city, so I can appreciate the rural nature and the open space nature and understand that what you're looking at in the urgency that you feel when you're talking about when you're reviewing your ESL program. And what I do best is make it happen. Other people make the decisions. Bright people, they go through the whole process, they make the decisions, they give me a target, and I go get it. I just get it done. And living in South Putnam, I live in one of the most beautiful counties and right next door to you. So it's not like I'm coming down from the city to show you how it's done. I have a real heart for the acquisitions. It's an authentic love for what I do. And I'm just here to serve you guys and go get it.
Do you know Commissioner Harvey from Putnam? Have you worked with Commissioner Harvey?
Yes.
Okay.
I know most of them. I've been there for over 40 years.
So as we approach the renewal, that's something you work and have done, right, is help communities with the new referendum?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. We have done that very successfully in a bunch of different places. We have a pretty well-designed process. We check in with you all to see what your conservation values are, because you all typically have a bigger picture of what the needs are, and you have to worry about financial constraints and how to provide recreation, for example, when maybe the community just wants conservation land. And so we check in with you all, determine what your values are, but then we hold a series of community workshops. And the same presentation that we would give you, we would give them. So here's what a agricultural program looks like. Here's what a conservation program looks like. What do you want to see saved? And then we put all that data together and come to you with, does this look like this has legs? If it does, we'll come back a second time with an actual blueprint, we call it the green print,
right,
of what a program manual would look like. And in this case, you've got one that's pretty good.
And you've got an active committee and you have an active process. So you're not reinventing the wheel, you're just putting more money in. So I think the conversation that I would suggest if you wanted to pursue that in 2028 is check back in with your community and see, are we, these values that you voted on, that we are spending the money on, is that still true today, 20 years ago? Is it still true today? Or should be a greater emphasis on ag land? Or as Eric showed you earlier, there's land out in the western part of the county. Does that fit your program right now, or should your program values be tweaked? So I think checking in with your community and get their sense of what it is they would like to see saved, and come back and then validate that with you all. Because again, you have that bigger picture. So we do that for communities.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Mr. Carney?
Yes. So under scope of service, it looks pretty definitive that you have recognized some of the work, obviously, that our staff has done, right? And I just see this first year, or this scope of work, as somewhat limited to focusing on those properties that are listed on the A list, and with a asserted sales approach and contact to get those. I would hope that those would be the first ones that you would work on. Your contract does not look like it. I mean, I know you have a larger scope of work that you can do. That was one of my questions when I thought you were going to be here a couple weeks ago, is it looks very limited in scope, and I would like to make sure that we stay focused on the scope. And then should other services be needed down the road, we would look back a year from now when the contract would renew and decide on if we want to change the scope. That's feasible, correct?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Carney, absolutely. We would want to remain within your scope, because that's how we would get paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Hanson? All right, well, at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. If there's anybody that wishes to address the commission on this item?
Good evening, Henry Dean. I'm here. I did not know this was on the agenda tonight. I'm here. I represent another entity, Hammock Dunes, but as a former board member of North Florida Trust, I felt compelled to come up and tell you what a great job these guys do. And 25 years ago, Governor Bush, asked Allison to be his point man on Everglades restoration, which was the $8 billion SERP program.
Can you just step a little closer to the microphone? So everybody,
the $8 billion Everglades restoration program. And I was at the time South Florida director, so Allison and I have a long history. You've got a good team here. I just didn't know that they were here. I had to speak. So that's it.
Just great timing.
Thanks, pal. I owe you. I owe you.
Anybody else for public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the board. I'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we enter into award a contract to the North Florida Land Trust, a nonprofit organization, under request for qualifications RSQ 24-052Q.
I have a motion by Commissioner Carney.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Hanson. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations to the team. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Item number 8D, this is quasi-judicial, project number 20250100070. Request for approval of Aranda Bay Phase 2B, a final plat in the PUD district for 65 lots in Phase 2B in the Hammock Beach River Club PUD located south of State Road 100 east and lying east and west of John Anderson Highway. Bear with me, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mangle. Oh, I think I just closed it. I had a statement on final plats that I've read before, but seeing as I just closed it, I won't waste everybody's time. You can review the issuance of the final plats and the specificity of them in our process, but thank you.
We've got the detail on
You have to
disclosure.
ask us.
Sorry.
Ex parte, thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Then, Mr. Commissioner Hanson, any ex parte communications?
Yes, I had a phone call from Mr. Tanner.
Okay, and Commissioner Carney? Any disclosures?
I had a conversation with Mr. Tanner.
And Mr. Tanner called me as well, asking a few questions about the final plat.
With that, I've got the graphic here showing, and so I know the detail's not particularly great here with this, but I've done this before, just to give you the orientation of where these two final plats, they are two separate ones, but Phase 2B lines up with the overall development. This is an approximation, but you'll see where it sits in relation to the project. This is 65 lots on 22 acres. The preliminary plat, as you'll remember, for all 6 of the phases, these are the last 2 of those, was approved back in November 16, 2020. And then both 2B and 2C brings our total lot count up to 335 lots. This is the culmination of all of what was on the preliminary plat approval. PUD itself did call out 453 units. If you remember too, it had 150 of those could be developed as multifamily residential units. Certainly that's still potentially possible on the remainder here on the east side or something for the west. But as of this point, the completion of these 2 final plats finishes out what we have previously approved for preliminary plat. Lots vary in size. Most of them are 7,200, 8,400. Most of them are at 8,400. And so you have the 60-foot wide and then 120 feet deep for the 7,200, 140 feet deep for the 8,400 square foot lots. Corner lots are a little bit bigger. Largest one is lot 269 at 29,000 square feet. Final plat approval here, because of how we structure these, it includes also the performance and maintenance bond approval by the Board of County Commissioners. So normally the final plat's kind of a ministerial act, but because of unique nature of us also accepting the bonds, we bring them forward as general business items to the board for their consideration. The PUD approval does still maintain the requirement for the spine road construction and golf course, but the PUD, as you recall, was not specific on when those requirements were needed to be constructed. So they're linked, as we've determined, as part of the 453-unit overall development. And so at this phase where we're at with 335, it's not yet required. Developers are aware of it. They'll still need to keep that in mind for the timing as we approach the 453 units. Regarding school concurrency, the developer had previously worked out a proportionate share agreement with the school district for 82 student stations, which corresponds to the 335 dwelling units that they were approved as part of the preliminary plat. And then you see where I noted it on the staff report. Not uncommon for us, but in preparing the item, doing our reviews, there were several Scrivener's errors. Those have been resolved now. We did have a submittal that came in after we had published, but what we had said in staff report was Scrivener's errors were to be resolved prior to acceptance of the Mylar. And so we would not let the chair sign the Mylar until we reviewed the plat for correction of all the Scrivener's errors. There weren't very many. They have been corrected at this point. And so here's the 5 pages of the plat itself. Again, this is a little busy, but you have this in your packet. This is the first page, the cover page of Phase 2B. This is the key sheet that shows where it is in relation to some of the Track 2A on the Intercoastal Waterway on the right-hand side. So all of this isn't part of the plat. This is showing areas that are also part of the previous plat. And then effectively the 2 roads that you see there on the left-hand side adjacent to John Anderson, along with a buffer that are 2B and 2C. And then this specifically in that dark line is part of the lots for 2B itself, running south from Buena Vista Boulevard, then here continuing, and then finally at its south end at Presidio Boulevard. And so that's the range of the lots. Again, this is out of the 2, this is the easternmost of the 2. 2C is on the left-hand side would be the one that's in between this development 2B and John Anderson 2C is to the left. So there's your 5 pages for the plat itself. And then a fairly lengthy recommendation with this because you are again accepting the bonds, and won't read this into record, but we have reviewed the bonds. The bonds, final bonds have been provided to us with signatures, with the insurance certificates, and that what we would have then with this board approval tonight would then have the ability for the chair to sign after we've been presented with the Mylar. And then as the construction completion occurs, the bond can be decreased. So your performance bond can be decreased in its amount. Maintenance bond's there in its entirety already. But what we would do then is have the performance bond completed as reduced in value as improvements are completed. And so with that, I'll close, wait any questions. Mr. Belshie is here on behalf of the developer. Any questions and any presentation he may need to make. I also spoke with Mr. Moylan. I don't know if it's an appropriate time for us to talk about the change to the Florida statutes. If we wanted to hold off on that, you want to do that as part of your county attorney comments?
That's probably better.
Okay. We have
all preliminary at this time.
And it is enrolled, but it's something that we're aware of. Right. We'll make you informed of that on how we will process final plats in the future. We feel fairly certain this is going to go through, but we'll hold off on that until a few minutes later. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open up for the applicant. Did you guys, Mr. Schmento, have a presentation? Good evening.
Good evening. Michael Schmento for the applicant. We do not have a presentation. This is fairly administerial. Your staff has gone through this final plat, both of them, and the statute, Chapter 171, has been satisfied, as well as your land development code. So I think the final plat complies with all the legal regulations that are before you. So we're asking for your approval. I say there were some Scrivener's errors, but I think they were more stylistic, nothing legal in nature. So just ask for your approval. We're here to answer any questions that you all may have or that the community may have to clarify things. So thank you for your time. Appreciate
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah. What was finally decided on the crossover road crossing over John Anderson? Remember, because it said over or under, and Sean weighed in on this last time about, it said may, it didn't say should. So
ultimately decided there would be no crossover, that there would be an intersection that would be constructed, and then a spine road through the west portion.
To go to connect to the other road
Yes,
on
sir.
the other side.
Yep, it would be from that you can't see the western portion of that here, but it would connect, the west side improvements would happen across at Buena Vista Boulevard.
Right.
And so then that would be the point of intersection there with John Anderson, and then that spine road then would meander generally northwesterly and would then come to 100 and the Colbert Lane intersection.
Colbert Lane.
Yes, sir.
Right.
All be at grade.
I think Commissioner Hanson's the only one that's still here from when that project was approved.
I think you're right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you should point out that it has been approved
Right,
already.
right.
I mean, we're not approving or disproving this thing. It's already been approved. We're just,
Well, the PUD was over 20-something years ago, so, but the new owner and the new development was approved. So, from my math, there's about 118 allowable PUD home sites.
That's right.
Still. So if this is 6 out of 6, when do the 118 get built?
Don't know. That's up to the developer.
They come back with another preliminary?
They will need to. If it's multifamily, remember we had the 150 multifamily. We don't ordinarily plat multifamily, say, apartments. Condos would. They'd have a condo pad. But something like an apartment development typically is a site plan review. PUDs for us, a little wrinkle, all PUDs are supposed to have a plat. And so we'd probably still want to have something there to handle maybe some ancillary tracks, stormwater tracks that are part of a multifamily. What I'm getting at is the developer could potentially come back with a multifamily footprint, not to exceed the 150, 118 is less than that, and so they could potentially come back with that. That would still go through some level of review with us. But the short answer for you, single-family development would need to go through preliminary plat and final.
So is there available acreage in there to do another 115?
Yeah, there are. If you noticed here, this one has it. Common area drainage easement, I think, is one of these. There's also other reserve parcels that are labeled as future development. And so any one of those potentially could come back as a replat. That potential is there. And then if I'm recalling correctly, the area to the south that you can see here referenced on this graphic that says unplatted remains still available for future development. And so that when you recall that preliminary plat that we had was everything north of the boathouse marina amenities and the Presidio Boulevard, all those parts north. And so you still had some area, maybe as much as a third of the development to the south that remained outside of the preliminary plat boundaries, maybe closer to a quarter here with this graphic. And so short answer.
If this does not finish the allowable single-family residential, does it change the PUD? Do they have to come back for another PUD?
No, ma'am.
So why is it final? Why is it the sixth phase? Because this is all he wants to build right now?
Because the 6 phases were what was in the original preliminary plat.
Preliminary plat, okay, not the PUD.
Original preliminary plat came in with a 335, 6 phases. This is the last 2 of the 6 phases under the preliminary plat that was approved.
And this is not the time to talk about the Spine Road or the golf course, which is never going to happen.
Not there yet. So the 453 units.
There's no space for a golf course.
There are still those common area tracks that are there. And so whether developer wants to talk about that was the plan that we were presented previously.
Or it sits there unplatted.
Could be common area greenway. Right now, the limits of construction exclude those areas so that here, for example, the tract 2A-11 that was part of the 2A plat that you see there, basically in the center, is labeled as common area and drainage. And so that, and it's not part of the wetlands. You can see just to the right-hand side there, the upland buffer that's there, that area is presently undisturbed. It's undeveloped. It could be for future development. With it being behind the lots, there would need to be likely a road constructed through there. Or, again, this could be the area for the golf course development or for the multifamily. These 2 final plats fulfill the preliminary plat approval that we had made previously.
Okay.
So with these, then anything from now on would need to go through some other approval process, likely a preliminary plat, likely maybe less so a site plan, but at least a preliminary plat.
Right, so just the final plat, based on the preliminary plat, it's really not so much the PUD. There's no final for a PUD. It's just the different parts within the PUD that come to us.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And phasing, as I need to probably say that for the record, so more direct to what you had said was how long. The phasing was really at the discretion of the developer in the original PUD. I think we talked about that before, the hindsight that we had, especially as it relates to the Spine Road construction of the golf course. The phasing is left to the discretion of the developer. It's not as specific as probably any of us would have wanted.
So as I understand, 453 is the magic number.
Yes, sir.
So the Spine Road will be enacted once we hit 453 or greater units.
At or before.
Was
yes,
there was that applied to the golf course as well?
I think that's our understanding when we reviewed the PUD, and I think that's what we discussed when we talked about the Spine Road directly, that both of those obligations were those that were linked directly to the 453, that the plat approval for 453 would cause those 2 to be constructed.
Okay. And for now, at this phase, most of the heavy earth-moving equipment is done.
Yes,
all that heavy equipment's off of John Anderson. Now it's just the residential construction of the homes.
Yes, sir.
Gonna
That's our
continue.
understanding. And this area, especially now, because there's actually been part of the work, we actually had an as-built that was submitted for both of these phases, so the earthwork's already been done here. This was part, if you remember, that Mr. Ginn had gone through and done some rough contouring in this area. We had a berm that was basically where 2C sits that was disturbed, and so you had quite a bit of that earthwork was done before, and then they've since gone in and leveled that out and done the grading, and we've had quite a bit of the work now has been completed. It's fairly far along.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I want to register my concern again, as I did the last time this was up and the previous time about water management. I'm not convinced that the applicant has solved the water management problem. And I've been out there, watched heavy rainfall, and it's going to leave the property. And they've assured me that it's not going to leave the property, but it's going to leave the property and affect their neighbors. And so we'll be watching that really close. I just don't believe their engineer, because I've seen what happens when the rain comes and it floods the area to the north. It flows to the north.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
If I could, one point that was raised today, there was an email that we received. I apologize. I don't know who the inquiry is from, but I saw it very quickly, and it was asking for elevation information related to elevation certificates. And the developer has pursued a letter of map revision for fill through FEMA that effectively would take this area outside of the flood zone. And so again, I know that's two different items. That's the FEMA regulatory flood zone versus your comments on stormwater. I just want to make sure I said that for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That will help them on insurance ratings?
It will, yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, so at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. If there's anybody from the public that wishes to address the commission on this item, welcome.
Welcome. Commissioners, thank you. I'm Sandra Schulteis, and I live on John Anderson Highway. I live south of this property, and taking note of what he has said, yes, they have totally done a fill trip on this. I mean, it is the people to the north are getting flooded. I got water on my property. Never in 18 years have I ever had property coming through the east side of the west side of my property, and it was flooded in this last hurricane that we had. So, and the ditches remained full for months. The hydrants were underwater. There is a huge drainage problem on this property, and they're never going to build a golf course. Don't let them fool you on this. And what happened to the road that was supposed to go over or under? Are we just going to not even think about this? I mean, the next thing they're going to attack is the west side, which is, this is what I think these people, the trust people that want to preserve, they should look at that property. Because if we go doing this on John Anderson Highway, 453 houses are going to be enough for transportation, police. You know, this is overdevelopment at its worst. I wish you guys would really work on thinking about what you're doing, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You stole my comment. I was going to, we arranged for the trust people to be here at the same meeting with Mr. Belshi so that they could exchange numbers.
I gave my card.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I'm John Tanner. I'm attorney for Flagler Beach and Preserve Flagler Beach and Bulow Creek, Inc. And I'd like to have the 5 minutes that a group, thank you, Adam, is entitled to. First of all, the vagueness of what the developer is doing here is disconcerting, to say the least. And I'd respectfully suggest we only, as you know, have 3 board members today, and we're too short, and I'd respectfully suggest you consider tabling this until we get the other 2 board members, and because this is an issue that affects all of John Anderson Scenic Highway. And citizens basically from the South Flagler line all the way up to 100. We're really concerned with the flooding issues and the vagueness of what they're going to do with regard to a roadway. When the early PUD with Bobby Ginn in 05 and 06 was being debated for quite a while, and then we had the, 3 years of, seemed like hearings before the county finally, and the developer finally came to an agreement as to what they would do. We thought we were through with it. Well, now we're looking at the potential for perhaps, another couple of hundred houses being put in there on these other phases. There's no guarantee as to what they're doing. And because of that vagueness, it's hard for the county or the residents to really plan and also look for the basic protection that we would expect for the quality of life, health, safety, and welfare, and all those other things along John Anderson. John Anderson Scenic Highway is unique. If this type of development continues at this level in this area, I fear that it's going to be faced with a prospect of being compelled or perhaps even forced to four-lane John Anderson Highway, which would totally ruin the scenic aspect of John Anderson. It would require the confiscation or condemnation of private properties up and down John Anderson, and would result in a bottleneck as you go north on John Anderson or south on John Anderson from the north end. You'd have perhaps a four-lane highway dumping into to High Bridge. And of course, High Bridge and that area is one highway, two-lane only. They're not going to be able to widen that. They will not widen it in Volusia County. And I believe it's just too vague for this county to make a decision as to what the developer's doing here. He began asking for 4,000 units in there. Is that where we're going? So I'd respectfully request that you table it at this point and get some clarity from the developers what he really intends to do with the property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Good evening.
Good evening. I live on John Anderson, 3 miles down, right in the middle of the road. First of all, the buffers on John Anderson that they say is 100 feet, I do not believe is 100 feet. I can see through the trees. There are berms from when Ginn put it in after the fact. That needs to be addressed. If you want to put the development behind trees so it's not accessible and viewed from the road, that needs to be addressed. On the 2050 comp plan that you guys were discussed earlier today, you had noted on here for the objective, under the conservation element, 1.14.2 says the extent feasible Flagler County shall require additional buffers along US Highway 1, north of Old Kings Road and the St. Johns County line, and County Road 201, which is known as John Anderson Highway from the Volusia County line to State Road 100. So if you're going to do that in the future, you need to look at it now. The only other thing I have concerns about is the Spine Road. From a year, I've been on there for a year, and I've noticed how much traffic is already on there. It's the additional construction, building, blah, 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 widening, putting in the turn lanes. That Spine Road will alleviate until they get it to a point where it's building and all that other stuff. There's just so much traffic. CVS, the car wash, people are pulling out, they're not stopping. The Spine Road would definitely ease some of that traffic in that corner of 100 and John Anderson. I mean, it is just, you go down there in the middle of the day and everybody's going in all different directions. So if they can come in off of Route 100 and cut across onto John Anderson, it might alleviate that corner there. So just a thought.
Thank you very much. Can you state your name?
Melanie Thompson,
Okay.
John Anderson Highway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other public comment? Mr. Schmidt, do you want to address some of the questions that were?
Certainly, thank you. This process from start to finish is complex. It's long. I mean, we have been at this since 2005, right? And when Mr. Belshie purchased this, I believe we started this in about 2017, and here we are 8 years later, just getting the first set of lots finalized. So the process is one in where we start wide at 30,000 feet and we get down to this narrow ending, which is where we're at today. So if you recall, just for education for those who may not know what we've been through as a community, we started off as a PUD that gave all the entitlements. That happened in 2005. In 2017, we made an application for the first phase of development, phases 1 through 6, which are basically smaller streets and subdivisions, and that came before the county commission in what's called a conceptual master plan. That conceptual master plan was approved by the county, and that identified the layout of all these lots in the first few phases. Then, in addition to that, after that conceptual master plan was approved, a developer, and this developer included, goes out and they do all the design. They design the roadways, the culverts, the landscape, and they take it so that there's a set of construction plans. That's called preliminary plat. That too was addressed by the county commission on 2 readings. So we went from the PUD to a conceptual concept, a plan that laid out what it was going to look like in this area. Then the county sent us off to do all the engineering. And then guess what happened after the county commission had probably 20 hours of hearings and 4 different approval processes? The developer goes out and spends about $20 million to construct the infrastructure. And that's where we're at today. So the phase that we're at today is really just the end of the process of this first phase after, $18, $20 million have been constructed out there, and people are now building houses out there, as you've seen. So I liken it as this is the last part of the puzzle, of the Lego box, that you all are proving that we constructed it according to the plans that we approved in the PUD, the plans that we approved at the conceptual master plan, the plans that we approved or you approved with the preliminary plat. All this is just saying that you all constructed it according to the plans that have been approved by this community, by this commission, after 20 hours of hearings and 4 commission meetings. So that's where we're at today. Things that you heard about the design, those were all part of the process that every community has to go through, from PUD, from rezoning, comp plan, conceptual master plan, preliminary plat. Those are the discussions. So as we move into the future, Ms. Carney, your questions, I think I understood. They'll come back at some future time and do another preliminary plat on the remainder of the property as it develops out in phases. Now, one of the questions that I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that there's plenty of land. I mean, when Adam could put up the photo, aerial photo, that one there. I'm not getting it, but it's in your agenda package and it shows. Yeah. In your agenda package, there's an aerial photograph right there, perfect. So the first 6 plats that you have approved and will approve tonight on the final plat after construction has been completed and all the money has been spent. The remainder of the property to the south of this, that plat in particular, and all the land on the west will come back to you into the future. And so there are 118 residential units to be constructed. There is a marina. There is about 356,000 square feet of commercial that can also be constructed on the property as a whole, and an 18-hole golf course. So when we go back into the future at the appropriate time, there'll be another design. You'll get a conceptual master plan, you'll get a preliminary plat, and after construction is completed, you'll get final plat. So that's where we're at today. It's just the final plat. I wanted to make sure that not only you all were on the same page of what we were doing today, but the community understood that this is the last piece, making to see that the box of Legos has been assembled correctly. There's a bond out there to ensure all the infrastructure has its warranty. Those things that the city of Flagler Beach has accepted, such as water and sewer improvements, they have accepted those, and that'll be conveyed over to them. So again, this is just the last T's and I's crossed and dotted on the first 6 phases of the community. Yes, sir.
But just to address some of the other concerns. So the spine road is a commitment that is still there. It's in the background because we haven't reached all the allowable units yet within the PUD.
Right, and I'd even go as far as it's not a commitment, it's a requirement.
Right.
It is a legal requirement to be constructed into the future.
The road concerns have been addressed as part of the entitlement process. Those were already handled with this development.
Right, in 2019, if you recall, after you all had the approval, Mr. Tanner's group sued the county. They lost that lawsuit, they appealed it, and they lost that lawsuit again. So the determination by the county at that time has been upheld by not only your circuit court here in town, but also the appeals court.
And then, and we've already approved the first 4 final plats. These are the last 2.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Okay.
So when do we address, if people are saying that there is flooding north and south of what's already been bulldozed, developed, sidescaped, when do we address the flooding?
So during the process, the historical process, when you do the comprehensive plan and the PUD, we start at 30,000 feet and there's an analysis. That was done, it was approved by St. John's Water Management District, by the FDEP, and I think Army Corps at the time it was originally approved. When you did the conceptual plan, we had an additional layer of detailed analysis addressing that. And then when we had the preliminary plat, there were actual engineering drawings showing how each one of those ponds retained all the stormwater on site. And in fact, even though your staff and our engineers came to you and asked for approval of those plans addressing flooding in your case, those plans were ultimately approved by the state and the federal government as though there are no flooding issues caused by this project. So I don't know that there's anybody else in the process that we have today that is qualified to say.
Yeah, but if the people that are living there say or experience it, how do we protect their property? And it's most likely in the same vicinity as the developed property. Whether it ran down, by the time you put a house on it, it would exacerbate the issue as opposed to make the flooding stop. I mean, when do we decide if there is flooding or not?
Well, it would probably be at the next time that you have a preliminary plat application that you all would be able to address the legalities of that. Just to be very simple, both state and federal law prohibit any development, including this development, to allow their water to go off-site and flood adjacent properties. Not only is it codified in state law, in federal law, but there's also legal causes of actions called trespass. So that all gets decided by the experts representing Flagler County, by the state government, by the federal government, and the developers that have to come together and demonstrate that. Now, are those people experiencing flooding? I don't know. Obviously, during the hurricane, there was flooding, but I think that happened all along. And I don't know that there's any indication or studies that even suggest that this project floods those people. In fact, I would tell you that Flagler Beach, after the original approval in 2019, when it came before you all, actually did their own study. And they went out and they hired, I forget the name of the engineering company, and the engineering company, there's a report in Flagler Beach that doesn't suggest that this property is causing the flooding that they're experiencing. So I don't have an answer to you as to what's happening on their property.
And the other thing, I guess this is not, is this when we talk about, if we want to, about annexation? I mean, if we get to phase 6, and you have all this continued land on the east side, then, and Flagler Beach annexes this whole plot, then our PUD is gone. We can't protect that spine road because it's no longer under our jurisdiction. So how do we protect the spine road at this date, not knowing the future of annexation or no annexation?
Not to sound silly, but you put 5 lawyers in a room, you get 6 opinions. I think the only opinion that matters to you is what Sean will tell you, or Al. I would tell you that when property is annexed from unincorporated areas into a municipality, the law requires that that annexation carry with it the PUD and comprehensive plan that is in the county, in this case, into the city, unless and until that jurisdiction then takes action to change the entitlements, which you saw last year when we were talking with the city of Flagler Beach. So you're all correct. How you protect it, I don't know. I think I'd leave that to Sean in order to evaluate that. Remember that Sean and Al Hadid were part of about 6 hearings at Flagler Beach, probably more than 20 hours of discussions. We had communicated with them on an hourly basis.
Well, Flagler Beach asked you for, or I believe, asked for the spine road to be done at 600 houses.
Correct. No, that was actually the county. The county came back and asked for that, and the developer and the city acquiesced to that at that point in time. But that was not finalized, so it's still, the current PUD is where you have it today.
Right. But that would include the 400 and, or not 400, 330-something that would be approved.
Today, right.
And then would it basically be another 300, whether it was on the east or the west side, to get to the 600. So you still have a couple more phases, I would think, to get before we get to the spine road.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And remember, that request that you're talking about, I think came from this county commission through your lawyers to the city and the developer. So those were all discussed in how we arrived at that number, just that random number, whether it was 600 or 552 or 723.
I will, just for points of reference to help you, I have to disagree somewhat with Mr. Shimeno because we've seen on the Old Kings Village, when that was annexed into Palm Coast, a PUD, that Palm Coast did not accept the PUD. They went straight zoning on the annexation. So all the entitlements that went with the PUD weren't transferred over when it went to straight zoning.
Well, because they changed the zoning from PUD to straight zoning. And
Right.
that could happen in Flagler
So
Beach.
it isn't, what we did is because that was, the PUD was approved through us, we babysat that process. Mr. Moylan did an excellent job of making sure that the protections that were important to us when we approved the PUD were at least analyzed by the city, and a lot of them were taken care of, and would happen the same way here,
Right.
which we have done. Through the annexation process, the county's been very straightforward in the protecting those things that were important in this approval that we're doing here.
Right, and that's the future phase of comprehensive plan or rezoning. Today is just approving the final puzzle being put together accurately.
Well, even the one next to BJ's going to the city of Palm Coast has a limiting policy on the comprehensive plan. That's not guaranteed to follow. We have to fight that and make sure that the city is aware of that limiting factor as well. So there's lots of things that we can do when another municipality annexes in county property has had prior approval, development approvals.
And Ms. Carney, clearly, we started in 2005 on this piece, and we're here now 20 years later. There was a big hiatus, obviously. But we'd be happy to sit with you and answer any questions you have, accommodate any suggestions that you may have or the county commission may have. I think you've all have seen Mr. Belshie in this community for about 2 decades and seen the quality of work that he's done. So when we get to that phase, we'll certainly reach out to each of you individually or as a commission, whatever you prefer. But certainly we work with your staff on a weekly, monthly basis on that portion and future of the project. But again, where we're at today is all the approvals have brought us to this piece. The puzzle's done. $20 million has been spent. The infrastructure is being conveyed to the city for their water and sewer and reuse. And this is just a formality.
And this is a discussion the city just had, was clarifying what a final plat is.
Right.
Because their council people had the same questions on Colbert.
Right.
You know, they were like, well, when can we say no? But it's not at the final plat. You know,
It's not, no.
The residents and and the commission's councils have the most input early on in the process. At the comp plan, at the rezoning, the earlier in the process you can make an impact, the better.
As you
This is the
negotiate.
very last step in the process of just of a surveyor verifying that construction has happened the way it's supposed to have happened.
And effective July 1, maybe, final plans.
And the
won't
bond is there to make sure that what hasn't been constructed is constructed per the plans.
Correct. So, didn't mean to take up a lot of your time, but
It's really, I mean, it needs to be said, these processes are important. The more that the public is educated on the different steps of the process, the better. And I'll, repeat myself. Earlier on, the beginning stages of development is the most important, when you have the opportunities to engage with the developer and work on concessions and massaging the plan. Unfortunately, the final plat is the last step, and it's all prescribed by statute.
correct, and your code, and I think staff has demonstrated that both the statute and your code have been satisfied, so we ask for your approval.
But per the city of Flagler Beach, they're at that stage. They're at the comp plan and the rezoning PUD stage. So that's why it's taken forever and so long, is they're taking their time to go through that process. But it gets harder to change once you get past that. So that's why it's so important at the beginning.
Well, I live there, and I'm going to disagree with you on that one. There's not been one, other than a question and answer period, where people were allowed to get up and talk. There was not one presentation. There was one by the staff, and there was one by the group. That was a workshop. But there's not been copious meetings or presentations. It's just like here, it's written down, and it's a concept. The concept has got empty blocks for future development. I think people want to see what's happening, and I think the more it becomes non-transparent, the worse it gets, because you form anxiety, and you got people that don't understand this process. Of course. And there's people that are tied to this community. And if anyone wants to convince me that this build-out, if it was ever to happen, and I won't be living here in 20 years from now, but if it was ever to happen, when you look at Bulow Creek on the west side that belongs to the county, that we are going to preserve, and we are going to build an interactive area, and you look across the street, across that creek, because it's a skinny creek, and you see 1,100 homes or 1,200 homes, that is not congruent with what's happening on the other side of the creek. So you can read all the comp plans you want, you can do whatever you want with comp plans. That is not a comprehensive continuity of community. I live right behind this development. You can drive down John Anderson any day. The buffer doesn't matter because you can see right through it. The openings, the entryways to this development is at least, I'm going to use football fields, at least 3 football fields long. It's fancy. It's high scale. I'm a realtor. I've been in there. It's nice. It's very nice, but it does not belong where it is. It's overdevelopment. So that's my opinion. Flagler Beach can do or talk to them about overdevelopment, but I wasn't here to vote no. Doesn't matter. It is what it is. But if there's flooding out there, and we've got people that are telling us there's flooding out there, we need to deal with it, because if we don't stop it now, or whatever happened, I don't know what you do. How do you prove it? You send somebody out. Somebody's going to lie that their home is flooding, or there's flooding in their driveway. That doesn't make sense.
I'm not going to argue. The standard that is required by both local, state, federal, is that it's not caused by this development. For example, behind Mr. Bryan's house, that was a discussion before. What we found out afterwards was in that Palms subdivision at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Palm Drive.
Right, they had a retention pond that was owned by their HOA in the back that had never been maintained, where it retained water and then would flood off into the mosquito control district or canals in the back. That was something that might help it, but again, those are on-site water control issues. I mean, I'm just a lawyer. I don't know how to demonstrate how water flows. We rely on the engineers at all the agencies, so we'll work with you as we move forward. Okay. Nothing else? We'll sit down and answer anything else you may have.
Any additional questions?
Thank you all.
Any follow-up, Mr. Mangle? Anything, Mr. Moylan?
Sure. There's the concern with floodwater. Right now, your hands are kind of tied in that regard. Commissioner Carney, you're asking, well, when is the time to handle floodwater? Our comp plan, we defer to the Water Management District, and if you as a commission are coming to a conclusion that those rules are not good enough, you are able to make more stringent rules for us locally. I believe Leon County does it. There may be others. But right now, without anything else in place, we defer to the Water Management District, and the results are what they are. When you remove the trees absorb so much of the water, it has to go somewhere. So that's one thing to think about in the future. If you want stronger stormwater requirements, you need to do it through your comp planning process. The final plat, as your legal counsel, I have to tell you that if you find that it meets the statutory requirements, you must approve it, or else you're putting us in legal jeopardy. You'd put us in a lawsuit that would be difficult to win. The statute is very technical. For final platting, it says, do you have a title on the front page? Is there an arrow pointing north? Are the margins half an inch? It's extremely technical. And I was going to save it for my report at the end of the meeting, but I'll just tell you there is a bill that passed the legislature unanimously that presumably will take effect July 1, where these won't even come before you anymore. It will be done at the staff level. And so as the chair was saying, the time to influence the development is early on in the process when it's at the comp plan and the zoning stage. What you're looking at tonight is you're sort of just checking boxes, which is what staff has done for you.
Okay, and thank you very much. And unfortunately, great points, because we've had a lot of conversations about more stringent stormwater controls, but there have been instances where the state legislature has overridden those as well. So it's a constant battle with home rule. All righty. If there's not any other questions for staff, does anybody have a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Veranda Bay Phase 2B.
And Mr. Mangle, can you clarify the motion? You had I wanted to add language in there about the bonds.
Yeah, together with accepting the performance and maintenance bonds as provided. I think that's good enough there.
Okay. So motion to include the bonds as well.
Bonds, yes, sir.
Did you want to restate? Do you need
Sure.
that restated? You know. I'm happy to open it back up again. I went to the applicant because nobody came up. That's why the applicant came back up to answer the questions.
I'm Marcia Tanner.
Pull that down a little bit.
Oh, I know, I'm bad with these microphones. I demolished the last one. I live at 5,000 John Anderson Highway. I've lived in Flagler County for 56 years. So We've seen a lot of changes. I'm honestly confused. I'm hearing we have 453 residential possibilities for this PUD. So where is this spine road gets built after 600? Did you all vote on that? Did you all
I'll
agree
answer.
on that? How could it be more than the 453 units that are allowed in the PUD?
I'll finish your comments and I'll answer at the
Okay,
end.
that's my comment. The other thing, I'm so confused because I come here and I hear that we are restricted to those numbers for the PUD. Then I go to the Flagler Beach City Commission meetings and the builder's asking for 2,000 more units. So where does this go? Is this higher density through annexation? Is that the route everybody's going? I just really don't know what to think. And I'm upset about it too. There are 3 openings into John Anderson Highway. Now, I thought there was supposed to be 1. Now there are 3. Has there been a traffic study done by the developer? Has there? You'll answer that. That's about it. I have so many questions, and it changes from here to Flagler Beach, and then back here, and then to Flagler Beach, enclave issues. Well, we'll just annex the west side. That will reduce the enclave issue. Well, no, we'll annex the east side. That takes care of the enclave issue. What is that? Do you all have a legal opinion? That's it.
Okay.
I did
I
it.
took notes. I'll answer them. If
Okay,
there's any other public
Answer.
comment. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Rick Bellhumor, Flagler Beach. I went for a helicopter ride with the mosquito control and hovered over top of this area. And of course, these guys been doing this for years and looking, and this is exactly what they're looking for: is where are the puddles? Where have the changes been after this storm or after this large rainfall? So what they explained to me was when they started moving dirt over there in the beginning, this was about a little over a year ago, I guess, that the water from like Palm Drive in the north side where Flagler Beach is, their water used to go onto the Gardens property. So once they built their berm to stop that water from going south. Now they have more water than they had before the developer started. But it's not runoff from the developer's property. It's because they don't have the relief of getting rid of their water on somebody else's property. So I just wanted to explain that. And if you want some good feedback on that from the helicopter pilots and the people from mosquito control, they can explain it better than I can, I'm sure. That's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I add to that? The same engineer designed both systems. So, yeah, the same engineer designed the Palm Avenue system and now designing the veranda project. Same guy. That's why I'm a little concerned about the water.
Okay, is there any other final comment, any public comment before I close again? Okay, closing public comment. A few answers to your questions. We're currently reviewing what has been approved by the county. So the Flagler Beach conversation got mixed in, but ignore that. We're dealing with what was approved through the county. That's all that we have control over. So the number of units, the spine road, all of that is required within the county's plans. The spine road will be required to be built when they hit the threshold. They have not hit the threshold yet. And it's not 600. The 600 is the Flagler Beach number, so forget that. This one is 453, I believe, right, Mr. Mangle? Okay, so again, I understand the confusion that's out there. The traffic was done when this plat was first approved. That's part of the approval process for the preliminary plat, even before that at the PUD level. So that's been taken care of. That's not reviewed at this final stage. I believe I caught all the comments. So we'll go back to Mr. Hanson.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Veranda Bay Phase 2 final plat in the PUD district for 65 lots in Phase 2B in the Hammock River PUD located south of State Road 100 lying east and west of John Anderson Highway, and that we accept the draft performance bonds and the maintenance bond, subject to the county attorney's approval as to form, as provided in the amounts of $341,756.21 for the performance bond, which is 125% of the engineer's certification costs of $273,404.97 for both Phase B, 2B, and Phase 2C. $707,205.57 for the maintenance bond, which is 10% of the engineer's certification cost of $7,072,055.70, and $878,845.71 for the performance bond for the roadway connecting Phases 2A and 2B, which is 125% of the engineer's certification cost of $703,076.57.
You got it?
Got it.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Carney. If there's any final questions or comments for staff, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll move to the second part. This is also quasi-judicial, project number 2025010071, request for approval of Veranda Bay, Phase 2C, final plat in the PUD district for 59 lots in Phase 2C in the Hammock Beach River Club PUD. Mr. Mangle.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you need to do separate disclosures for this one. I'm assuming the
We
same
should-
disclosures hold for.
We'll do it. It's
sir.
any disclosures again, Mr. Hanson?
I was called by Mr. Tanner.
Okay, and Commissioner Carney, and same likewise for me.
Thank you, sir. And so this same location for this one is west of 2B. And so a little different, but not much. This one falls between John Anderson and 2B. And so this is 59 lots on 16, right at 17 acres. Again, the preliminary plat was approved back in 2020. These two are the last two, brings us to a total lot count of 335, consistent with the preliminary plat approval. Lots here are greater than 7,500 square feet, majority of them, 56 of those lots at 7,500 square feet. The remaining ones are the corner lots. Now, the 7,500 square foot lots have those 60-foot wide by 125-foot deep on their dimensions for the most part. Largest lots, one of those corners, lot 270 at 13,616 square feet. Do have the final plat approval again, including the performance and maintenance bonds. The PUD approval did call for the construction of the spine road and the golf course improvements consistent with the 453 units in the PUD. School concurrency, again, same as before, 82 student stations based on the 335 units. Scrivener's errors that we noted before have now been corrected, and we've had the preliminary, the correction of the final plat submitted to us in PDF format, and they are working now on the preparation of the Mylar. This is 2C, and this is that layout that you see here, this cover sheet, and then very same overall map that you saw previously. And then you do have with this tract 2C-2, the common area landscape buffer, that's adjacent to John Anderson. And so you can see the lot layout. You can see where that strip falls, and that is 100 feet wide. That's labeled as 100 feet from the east right-of-way of John Anderson to the nearest rear line of any of those lots. You can see that dimension is 100 feet. And then continuation of that, as we had before, where we have the lots running southward from Buena Vista Boulevard. Again, the middle portion still with that common area landscape buffer tract, and then ending to the south at Presidio Boulevard. So that's the 5 sheets that comprise the 2C plat. A little different than before, but not by much. We're just changing the lot numbers and the phase designation here. Your bonds remain the same as with 2B. Both phases 2B and 2C were under the same performance and maintenance bond. And along with that, then you had also then the same performance bond linking the roadway between 2A and 2B. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll close. Wait any questions or comments. Thank you, sir.
All right, great, thank you. Applicant shaking his head, you're done? Answer questions, okay, very good. So back to the commission, is there questions on this phase for Mr. And Mr. Tanner, did you, from the group, speak during public comment, or? Public comment. Okay, I'll get you on public comment. This time we'll open up for public comment. You can come up.
I'm Tanner, attorney for Flagler Beach and Beulah Creek. There's a couple of issues that you talked about. I'd like to clarify at least our position. The traffic study that was done for this PUD is 25 years ago. Traffic and population and housing development has changed considerably in the last 25 years. The traffic study that was done then still not only recommended, but said it was essential to channel the traffic off of John Anderson Highway to preserve John Anderson Highway. That's why the off-grade crossing was part of the plan for the original PUD. And now we have no plan. We have a higher density all around the development with regard to new developments, and you know them better than I do. By and large, this commission approved them, and that's changed. But the fact is the traffic's going to be worse than ever. You will destroy John Anderson, or I shouldn't say you will destroy. The destruction of John Anderson as we know it, a scenic highway, and the quality of life, public safety, health, and welfare of the people all the way along that road would be negatively impacted significantly. Quality of life would drop considerably. The safety and the unbelievable idea of a traffic jam between the Flagler line and the Highway 100. I mean, that's what you're looking at. And then you have the evacuation problems during hurricanes. So again, we would urge you to require, in addition to what's going to be done, we may not be at the finishing phases, but they said they're going to provide a spine road. The spine road needs to drain on the north end of that development, not in the middle and not on the south, because if the north end is where the relief is going to provide the protection for John Anderson, because if they ever start that traffic down John Anderson, it will end the John Anderson as we know it. And the flooding issues, we saw flooding on John Anderson this past heavy rain season where no one has ever seen it. I talked to the old timers. They said they've never seen, it was nearly waist deep on John Anderson for several months. And that was perhaps from the Linson development up there, perhaps from the development going on to the south. But these oak trees, hickories, and magnolias drink 100 gallons of water a day. The current developers of today aren't like the older developers where they preserved the giant oaks and hickories and treasured them. They're cut down like trash, and they build with 5 feet between the houses. Thank you.
Before you hold on. Yes, I just have to clarify. You understand we're not approving anything new.
Yes, sir.
So all of the concerns are already vested in this. We're not approving anything the traffic from this has been accounted for, invested before.
Yes, sir.
So we understand the concerns. I think this board, more than any that you've probably talked in front of, understand the concerns you're saying, but it doesn't pertain to this. You know that.
Well,
This is already vested and built and constructed.
yes, sir. I understand that the PUD was approved.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
And this preliminary plat approved prior.
Correct. And there was an overpass or underpass requirement at one time.
It's still there. It's still there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. If there is that requirement, then
Yes, sir.
you'll protect John Anderson.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Yes,
much,
sir.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Yes, absolutely. It's a brand-new item. Just state your name again for the record, please.
Melanie Thompson, John Anderson Highway. There is no overpass or underpass on John Anderson. That was nixed 6-7 years ago.
Correct.
Because the will, make, shall, whatever was,
Correct.
so it's just going right level. There's no.
Spine
going
road,
over.
correct, level.
There is flooding. If you go back into the property and you look back at the end of Palm Drive, their development's here, Palm Drive is down here. You're looking down into the road, it is flooding. It's going down in there. I don't live there, but I can see it. I know the person personally that owns the 40 acres to the south of this development, and he is getting so much water going onto his property already, and there's no houses even built there, just because it's clear cut. So when you put buildings up, it's just going to be worse.
And again, I don't think this board disagrees with you, other than this has been designed and permitted already.
I get it. I bought my house in '06 when Ginn was starting this. I was aware what was going on, and what they had envisioned was okay with it. But what's happened over the last 15, 18 years is just, it doesn't work anymore. So as Commissioner Carney was saying about the flooding, once you get the houses up, you're never going to direct the water to go anywhere else. Then you'll have a big old problem, so. Okay, thank you.
On the flooding issue, and I brought it up with Mr. Belshie, and we've talked about this, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until it's all finished.
Right.
Because their plan says that no water will leave that development. It flows from one pond to the next pond and then to the intercoastal waterway if it really overflows. So I'm waiting to see. But I think it behooves us to watch it very closely to make sure that there is no flooding, so north or south.
Well, what's the corrective action if there is?
They're in violation of state law. The water cannot leave the property. Cannot leave the property. Mr. Chimeno has brought that up. It's a law.
You have the engineers who've signed and sealed the plans that have their license on the line. The different people that were part of the development plan set that was approved by the Water Management District.
The mistake made with the Palm Avenue development, and again, it was the same engineer, but they turned it over to a homeowners association to maintain the pond and all that, and there was no homeowners association, so nothing was done. Nothing was done. So I would behoove Mr. Gimeno and Mr. Belshie that at some point you're going to do the same thing. You're going to say, okay, the homeowner association is now responsible. Well, please make sure there is one. That you're turning it over to a group of homeowners rather than turning it over to empty seats around a table. So that's a lesson learned from that last one. We don't want to do that again. But again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I've seen the drawings, I studied it, and it shows that the water will not leave their property. But as Andy said, that's the engineer's license on the line here, if it does, plus a probably large lawsuit. So we'll see.
Somebody's got to bring the lawsuit. And the argument about the flooding, Palm Coast, I looked into the Palm Coast situation, and it's the same thing. You go from an area that's not developed to an area that's developed. That water was going somewhere, and it's probably 100% sure that it was going into the non-developed lot, because that's where the water is going to go. So it's just moving this water around, and I'm with Commissioner Hanson. Until everything's developed out, you're not going to know where the water is going to go. Mr. Bellhumor left, but if the mosquito control folks can see by looking down on it, we have drones that we can do the same thing and look down on it. I just don't know it's our job to monitor it. I mean, I can't go back to my previous board, or we can't go back and undo something that's already done. No matter if it took 20 years or 5 years, we can't undo it. This is overdevelopment. There is no doubt about it. But it happened. You unseated, or they didn't run. We unseated one of them, but that's the only thing you can do is watch what your people are doing. Watch what the developers are doing. That's all you can do. And I'm very glad to see a very proactive group. I don't know what else to tell you to do, but landowners have land rights, have rights to do. This board saw the rights all the way through to the plot and the development of the lot, the land. We can't make the developer a steward of what we love as citizens of Flagler County, but we can ask. That's all we can do is ask. So this is, as their attorney stated, this is an administrative duty at this point.
I will add for a point of clarification on drainage, because we're getting some mixed signals, but engineers design based on drainage basins, which can include off-site parcels contributing to that. They're supposed to take that into account, and not so that drainage coming off of a parcel isn't blocked by the other one that's built up against it. As an example, there was a subdivision in the Hammock that had just that happening that came before us. And the parcels, the drainage basin was draining from the existing home to the development parcel. And it was, I think ultimately that hasn't come back to us because of that issue. That drainage issue is too complex and too expensive to handle. So those are the safeguards that should be in place when they're designed properly. This doesn't always happen. Construction sometimes doesn't happen the way it's supposed to, and that we have to safeguard that. We have a building department that will go back out and double check that it's constructed properly if somebody reports an issue. But I would say, as a closing statement, just as we go through the comp plan and land development code, that we make this one of those priorities that we look at as is stormwater drainage. Let me ask if Mr. Sciamento, did you have comments from public comment?
Yeah, just real quick, and I'll be very direct. Obviously, Mr. Tanner is emotionally invested in this project. That was his area for the last 50 years, and we recognize that. But he's been before you in the past, even after the original approval, as of late of last fall, making representations. And I just want to tell you that his representation to you that the traffic study is 20 years old is just patently false. Your own staff requires every time we do this to come up with new traffic studies to address modern day conditions. And I may draw that attention to you because there's many things that he says to you that are just patently false, either out of intention or out of ignorance to the process. And that's why I said I needed to say this candidly. So as we move forward in the development of this project into the next 10 years or maybe even 30 years, Ms. Carney. Please remember that it's a complex process, and not only him, but others may come before you with things that they think are accurate, but we're always here to sit and talk with you all, to explain to you these very complex, detailed issues, and if we can't answer them, we'll bring together experts that can to address them, because they are significant issues that you are faced with, and we recognize that. And that goes to one of the comments that he suggested about, this overpass or underpass. The commission made the determination that the overpass or underpass was not a requirement of the PD. That was litigated by Mr. Tanner, sued the county, not only on the district court, but the appeals court, and they affirmed that county decision. And as a result of that, we have designed the road and those entrances to meet the requirement that there's not an overpass. So I just wanted to make it very clear that an overpass or underpass is not part of this project, according to the county in the past. So just want to make sure we're on the same page about that. So thank you. Other than that, I have nothing. Okay.
All I know is a lot of that was done at such a prior time before us. I just want to deal in the facts that we have before us. That was, I don't know when it was, I know it was approved before Kim and I were on here, but we just have to deal with the facts that are in front of us.
Correct. And today is just, again, like the first one, it's making sure that the puzzle was put together according to the preliminary plat and the construction drawings. So thank you for your time. Sorry.
Adam, this is a really stupid request.
Let me
but
make
could you-
sure we're done with
Oh,
public comment.
sorry.
Is there any other public comment before we come back to the board? All right, seeing none, we're closing public comment. Go ahead.
Could you go back to your first slide? I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Okay.
Which way are you going?
No, the list. I'm sorry, the list. There we go. So a little technicality, it said PUD approval, 3 dots up, 3 points up. Called for Spine Road, is it calls for Spine Road? PUD approval called or calls?
I'm trying to see where you're reading from.
Read from the bottom.
Grammar. I would say called because it's past tense. It's PUD approval was done in, I'm not following you, I'm sorry.
So is
2005, it
well,
would have called
it's
for-
misleading that it still is still part of the PUD approval. The PUD calls for a spine road and golf course.
I bet that's a difference without a distinction to me, but called or calls, it's your preference.
Okay.
The spine road and the golf course are still required.
Okay, there you go. All right, thank you. That's all.
All right, same as with the early one, we have ready to, unless there's any other questions or comments for staff. You good? You don't have to read, I think, the whole thing. I just acknowledge the performance and the maintenance bonds. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Veranda Bay Phase 2C final plat to include all the bond requirements, the bonding requirements that we have set forth in 2B to be the same as 2C.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Carney. Seeing no other comments or questions, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right. Just want to make sure, before you leave, Mr. Belshi, did you want us to get you the information for the North Florida Land Trust? Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. 8F, quasi-judicial, project number 2000-250-30047. Request for approval of a partial replat, final plat for South Towers at Hammock Dunes. Mr. Mangle. Let's go ex parte communication. Mr. Hanson? Did you have any?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot. I've lots of calls from Mr. Greg Davis. I've been out. I've looked at it. So I've been schooled on this. I'm very familiar with it.
Okay. Commissioner Carney?
Long time ago, before any of this came before us, just an overview of the property. I did meet, I believe, the owners and future developer, but we really didn't talk much about it.
I have none. Thank you.
Here's the overhead graphic for the parcels that are subject to the application. And so you can see them outlined in red here. And this is that last of the clusters that were outlined in the 2012 essentially build-out agreement. Effectively, this is the last of the beachside parcels that are left. And so you can see there north of Calle del Sur, and then just south of Tuscany. The Tuscany Tower south is what you see at the north end. And if you recall back, it's a little different because it's a replat. And so it was approved as the South Towers at Hammock Dunes quite a while ago. And so it's actually been recorded, map book 35, pages 71 and 72. This is right in the heyday. We had a performance bond filed. This was proposed for 128 units with two 12-story towers on the 6.81 acres. And then now what's happened is, well, let me stick with what I've got here. When we went through and we reviewed the application, Parcel C, the beach preservation parcel, and you can see that one rectangle that's there, that's part of it. That sets effectively your west line of your Parcel C. And so you can see the very obvious rectangle that's by the beach side. You can imagine then extending, I can show you with a laser pointer, but not for the benefit of the commissioners, north to south from that west line of the rectangle are the boundaries, thank you very much, of Parcel C, the beach preservation parcel. And so when we went through and we looked, actually the totality of this application is over the 6.81 acres. Then we came back, really the only part that's actually being replatted through this is that part that's west of the west line of the beach preservation parcel. Parcel C, beach preservation parcel remains intact, is not being affected by this replat in any way. And you'll see why here in just a moment, because the two lots that were part of the South Towers plat are the parts that are being now turned from 2 to 1. Proposal here, eventually, if everything goes correctly, I think I've got the countdown correctly on this, an owner in one of the condos would have a membership in 3 of the associations. The Hammock Dunes Master HOA, the Residences North and South Condo Association for the common area, those improvements that are included on that single lot, and then they'll have membership in their individual towers, the individual vertical development that's part of the 2 towers themselves. The replat application does include a performance bond for all that horizontal infrastructure. Things have changed, and so now with this plan coming in, that there's a significant amount of infrastructure that's being proposed, and the performance bond does cover that. We had emergency access easements that showed up before on the South Towers plat, and those were needed at the time. Fire marshal looked at it and said, well, we need these. It had, mainly because of the 2 lot lines, is what I would say those were needed for. And then now what we've looked at is that we don't need those anymore. That with the construction of the common area improvements to the rear of these buildings, there's sufficient hardscape that would give the fire department access around both of these towers to the rear. The concern's always what kind of medical condition, what kind of medical emergencies would you forecast, and that access is provided through the hardscape that's being proposed here. All DRI-related obligations have been met through the essentially built-out agreement. Part of the conditions we had in 2012, we went through and we vested this development and the development behind the sales center. Part of our conditions there is we needed to make sure that any of the DRI obligations that were remaining outstanding were satisfied by the master developer. Admiral satisfied those obligations, and in turn, then this development was vested for the 128 units in the 2 towers. Further, the school concurrency is exempt also through the DRI because of it being a DRI development order approved prior to 2005. then final point to raise is that the tower construction itself may be phased, but all the infrastructure must be in place for any individual tower prior to any certificate of occupancy being issued. And so that the phasing themselves, we anticipate what's going to happen is that common infrastructure is going to be done, and then one of the towers may be done first as opposed to both of them being constructed at the same time. And that's possible. It's all at the discretion of the developer to do so. And then here are the 2 pages for the plat. This is the existing plat. And so this gives you an idea of what we're changing. And so this is the South Towers at Hammock Dunes plat. Very busy in those 2 lot lines. The orientation here north, kind of to your top left, south to the bottom right. The ocean's at the top. And you can see there those two lots that are labeled there, Lot 2 and Lot 3. You still have some beach access easements through Parcel C, the beach preservation parcel. You can see where those are shown. And then now on the new plat, the partial replat, those beach preservation parcel access easements through Parcel C remain intact. And so now the orientation here with this one, north's at the top, south's at the bottom. To the right is the Atlantic Ocean. You can see those dashed lines there with keeping those beach access easements through Parcel C still there. And then what we have then in the center is a single lot effectively with this. And so that corresponds then to what's going to be the common area developed as the base of both of these 2 towers. Staff's recommendation with that bit of the report is that the board approve the final plat as a replat of the South Towers and Hammock Dunes, subject to the applicant submitting the Mylar and finding that the plat is consistent with Chapter 177 Florida Statutes, Land Development Code, and accepting the performance bond based on that engineer's opinion of probable cost. And then conditioned upon the reduction in that performance bond, as I said before, on any as-built that are provided. Got quite a group here that's been patiently waiting. They've got, I think, most everybody. The one part that I didn't have available and I didn't put up on the overhead, but you have the graphics. And I'd go on and I think I had said, well, they may be subject to change, but there's architectural renderings that are in your packet at the back end of the packet. And so that's one piece. We couldn't have an architect that was here because of us wanting to advance this because we had promised the developer to have it on this meeting. The architect had actually scheduled themselves for another appointment, and so they're not able to be here. But I think we got everybody else present in the chambers tonight on behalf of the developer's team. So with that, I'll close. Await any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Mangle?
Yes, Adam. So basically, what's the benefit of merging the 2? Is it the common area is so that they have a restricted or well-defined HOA?
It does make more sense this way with what they've proposed of having the entrance, the porte cochere, the parking, all of that being basically at its lower levels, and then having the 2 towers rising above. This is honestly less complicated than what we had before.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Did they have to meet with, I don't remember, with the lot line in the middle, did they have to meet setbacks along those lot lines? Or?
That was something that was mentioned on the plat itself before. We didn't have, notice here in the notes where we normally would have listed PUD or plat addendum, and we didn't have that with this. In effect, we had all of the development approval encompassed within this plat. And so that was part of what we came back with. The short answer back for you is yes, that would have been a concern.
Yeah.
And then now that's not a concern, especially because you have that common hardscape, that initial building, that foundation with the parking all across that line. And so now we don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner Hanson? Who would like to represent the applicant? For the team.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Corey Brown with Storch Law Firm, 420 South Nova Road, Daytona Beach. I first like to thank staff. You have a great staff here in Flagler County, and really enjoy working with them. I think Adam did a pretty good job explaining things. So, I'm here for questions. We got the development team here for questions, and just want to reiterate that this plat's consistent with the zoning. It's consistent with Florida statutes and the Land Development Code. So we're looking for hopefully approval tonight. But yeah, we're available for questions. Anything you have. I know you have some other documents in your packet that weren't shown up here, but hopefully you got a chance to look at those.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions? All right, we'll go to public comment. Anybody for public comment on this item can approach the podium. For or against? We always like to hear the fours. All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Close public comment. I don't have any further comments. I'm looking at the graphics, and the project looks great. The site plan is nice and clean. There's additional, 15% additional open space with the design, so that's a good thing.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the partial replat and final plat for the South Towers of Hammock Dunes, parcel numbers 041131 and several numbers, and 41131 and several more numbers, and 41 and several more numbers. Applicant Corey Brown, Storch Law Firm, to include the performance bond as provided in the amount of $2,240,000, $625.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Carney. Any other final comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for being here and waiting us out until the end, but come on up. This is
sort of anticlimactic.
Yeah. We were almost to final.
Super fast because everyone's tired. I'm Rosa Carney, BH, Palm Coast 2626 LLC, doing businesses related group. Just wanted to say thank you to you and also particularly your staff, Adam Mangle, Miss Simone, Heidi Petito, Miss Graham, and I also wanted to thank the HDOA board who has been instrumental. We worked very well together. Aggressive negotiators, but other than that, we were really great together. And Travis Hunk, thank you, appreciate it. It's a great team effort, awesome community. Thank you for having us here.
Awesome. We welcome you, so thank you. Sure, applause. All right, thank you all for being here. All right, we'll move to our item number 9. What do we got? 9A. This is legislative. Request to approve and adopt on second reading the amendment to the floodplain management ordinance. Mr. Mangle.
We made no changes since your first reading, and so with that, I'll close and give you the option to approve on second and final reading, or to deny it on second and final reading, or to continue it for time and date certain. With that, wait your questions or comments. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'll open it up for public comment. Is any?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So remember, what this did was this was all related to mobile homes, and so that we made no other changes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to rush that for you. Public comment. Is anybody from the public wish to comment on this item, the floodplain ordinance? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve on second reading, the amendment to the floodplain management ordinance.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Carney, seconded by Commissioner Hanson. Seeing no other comments or questions, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. That does it for our public hearings. We postponed 9B, so that'll be on June 2nd. All right, we'll move down to county administrator reports. Ms. Petito.
I don't have anything, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moylan.
Nothing from me, sir.
All right, thank you. This is open it up for public comment and community outreach. This is the second public comment time period. Does anybody wish to address the commission? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back for commission reports. Commissioner Hanson.
I had the opportunity for the fourth consecutive year in a row to judge the dog surfing contest in Flagler Beach, and it was a hoot, to say the least. There must have been 700 or 800 people there. It was very well attended, and it was absolutely although it was 95 degrees, it didn't stop the people from showing up. I mean, it was a huge turnout, and the dogs were wonderful, and there was some great surfing done. So,
this is great video and pictures. Is that all you got?
that's all I got.
That was
enough.
I drove out there for the farmers market and then walked the downtown area, but it was crowded. You couldn't find. Was it the mayor said there's plenty of parking? Couldn't find a parking spot, but it was. You could tell everybody was having a good time. So happy to see it. Commissioner Carney.
Yeah, I don't have anything to report other than I want to send my colleagues, Miss Leanne and Pam, get well quick. I have already reported that I'll be out of town this week. Reported that to Miss Heidi, and she's got my calendar. And that's all.
I think we all
Yes,
send our get well to our two ladies. Absolutely.
It's terrible. Just I feel for them that and hope that they kick this and get better quickly and come back. I really don't have anything. The things that I did have, I've lost my train of thought anyway. So,
well then, Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Thank you, sir. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being here.